This conference will now be recorded.
There we go. All right, good evening, everybody. The time is now 7:02. I apologize for the delay. We had a Finance Committee meeting this evening that kind of ran over a little bit. Must have a lot to talk about. At this time, please ensure that your cell phones are silenced and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mrs. Anderson, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Rowland.
Here.
Councilmember Burke.
Here.
Councilmember Dowdy. Councilmember Holland.
Present.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Rounds. Councilmember Chapman.
Here. Mrs. Dowdy, are you online with us this evening? No. All right, so both Mrs. Dowdy and Mrs. Brown both called out this evening.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Rowland, second by Councilmember Chapman. Mr. Anderson.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Burke.
Aye.
Councilmember Rowland.
Aye.
All right, both Councilmember Dowdy and Councilmember Rounds have been excused. Moving on to the agenda this evening, we have a presentation or a proclamation for 2022 Make a Difference Day. But in light of everyone who is here this evening and our time, I've already signed that, put it in the folder. I encourage everyone this Saturday, the 22nd, to help out a neighbor or Works Department at the middle school commons at 8 a.m. To go into town and pick up leaves, branches, help out everyone.
Paint fences,
Paint
clean
fences.
gutters,
Yes.
pick up litter. It's a half a day, so from 8 to noon. And we provide coffee and donuts, and the candy shop is providing treats. Dippin' Dots, and then we're also providing, I believe, pizza.
All right. I encourage everyone to participate. So this evening we have a number of people that have signed up for items not on the agenda and a couple for items on the agenda. With that said, I received 2 emails which I provided to council in front of you this evening that will also be attached to the agenda tomorrow for citizen comments for items not on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience who failed to sign up that wanted to speak this evening? Okay. With that said, there are some rules. You have so many people, you're allotted 5 minutes to speak to council. There is no back and forth with council. Your comments should be directed towards myself. Council is here to listen. Your dialogue back and forth is not something that occurs at this time. We're excited that you're here and that you're here to provide comments. Any answers that I can provide to you or staff can provide to you, we will do that. But at this time, council will not be answering questions back and forth to the community.
May I be put on the list?
Oh, yeah, we'll call you as soon as I get to the end. Yes, absolutely. With that said, I was not, yes, sir.
Me too, also.
Okay, we'll call you up at the end. Okay. When we get to the list here, we'll provide that opportunity for you to step forward. With that said, I was not supposed to be here this evening, but I anticipated a crowd coming out, and I want you to understand that your comments are not falling on deaf ears. So I've made it a point to be here this evening, but once we're done with the citizen communication portion, I will be stepping out and turning it over to Mr. Smith, who is Mayor Pro Tem. So with that said, Ms. Singleton, let's step forward and I'll provide you 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Gail Singleton, and I am here tonight to represent the Woodland Action Center, which most of you hopefully know that is our food bank and thrift store for our community. I realize you guys have a lot of irons in the fire, as they say, and I feel that things have progressed in the last few months at Woodland Action Center that the community needs to be aware of. One of those is the fact that we are seeing a lot of new people coming into our community. A lot of them are refugees from Ukraine that are being told in English classes in Vancouver to come to our food bank on Saturdays. So we're getting an increase of people from the Vancouver area. We also have people that are getting bused in from Clark County for homelessness because they've been having sweeps and they've been having changes. We see a little bit from Cowlitz County, but it's mostly people trying to get north. So we seem to be the hub. Unfortunately, we get confused with Woodland, California, so people think there are more resources here than there really are. We do not have shelters. We do not have showers. We do not have any crisis center of any kind. You know, we are a food bank. The one group we get the most from Cowlitz County is when people get out of Cowlitz County Jail, they get their $25 and then they come to us and they're wanting food, clothing, tents, supplies that we can't do at 25, 30 people at a pop. We just don't have that kind of resource. So I know that you guys are looking into reining in the bottoms or wrangling it for planning. We have a lot of properties on the bottoms and up in the hills of both Cowlitz and Clark counties that people are congregating, multiple RVs, multiple people are.
I'm trying to meet
So we have one address for 4, 5, 6 families. And of those 4, 5, 6 families, you could have one person, you could have 10. So it's really hard for us to deal with this influx. With COVID and the changes, it used to be we only had to worry about the greater Woodland community, which for us is Kalama to La Center, and then up into the hills with Cougar, Ariel, Yale, Yakal, that community. But with the new rules, we now have to give food to anyone who lives in the state of Washington. And they're coming to us because it's not just a food box. We have open shopping concept. So you come to us, you get a number, and it's based on family size. So if you tell us you have 4 people in the family, you get to shop and get food for 4 people. It's not just, here's your box, we'll see you next week, or here's your box, we'll see you in a month. And we're fighting to keep food on the shelves because grants have become harder to get. There are more restrictions than there used to be. It's always hard to get a grant for personnel, but trying to get grant for food is harder. Right? I have that backwards, sorry. It was always hard to get grants for labor, to get staffing. But to get food, to get resources, to get, the city has helped us with sleeping bags, tents, those kind of things in the past. Those are drying up because of the new regulations of focusing on the Black, Indigenous, people of color grants. Our community is not that. And so we automatically disqualify, even though,
1 minute.
oh, sorry. Even though, we don't turn anyone away. It's just we don't qualify for those. So to give you a heads up, from January of 2020 through September 2022, we have spent $25,773.44 on housing. That's 39 families. Out of those 39 families, 27 were within the city limits, and the rest came from COVID money that we were able to direct because of the COVID funding. In 2022, we've only done 6 families that reside within the city limits because there's no housing. We've lost apartments due to fires, so we're really getting restricted on our being able to help the community. And so we just kind of wanted to touch base with you to let you know what we're facing and to let you know that we're not able to, we're trying to keep serving our community, but our community is expanding without, we're without borders basically. So we just kind of wanted to bring that to your attention because we are having to call 911 more than we've ever had to before. So in 5 years, I've called 4 times for police. 2 was a week ago Saturday. So thank you for your time.
Very much. Mr. Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening.
Originally, I was here because of growth without good infrastructure. But since that time, I have neighbors on either side of me complaining about the water issue, and I imagine that'll be addressed later. But mainly what I wanted to say is, gosh, is there any way you can just put a hold on future expenditures until people get kind of squared away? Just tonight, 8.2% inflation rate. Old people can't keep up with it, and it's just not right for them. Number two, I've talked to a lot of people, and I can't find anybody that's talked to any councilman or know a lot about what's happening. There's an opportunity for you on the MyDoll account billing that comes out every month. Just put a little thing, we're going to have a meeting here. The cost will be $800,000 to taxpayers over whatever. And just stimulate, get a lot of input. And my company was a world-class company, and we used what was called collective synergism. Because the people out here that have knowledge, you don't even know about unless you contact them. And I just ask one more thing. Is it possible to notify people of a percentage increase of the next two water increases? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
You ought to thank me because I short this time.
You did well. And Justin, I should have said this before when we started the meeting, that Ms. Coleman is actually giving a public works, and I'm hoping that some of you got that I responded to and told you that was happening this evening. Ms. Coleman, our public works director, is giving a presentation on her budget request for 2023, which will probably answer a lot of the questions that folks have.
Just one comment. I've noticed that the communication that y'all been given, I'm seeing it out there. That's really important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. So I encourage, a lot of times we have folks that show up, will say what they want to say and then leave. But I encourage you, especially those that are here for the utility issues and concerns, to please stay. We have a light meeting after only a few action items, but please stay and watch Ms. Coleman's presentation. So a lot of the questions that you have can be answered. And with that, Mark McVeigh. And while I was sitting here, I responded to your email again, so the second time. And we do have your comments.
Okay, great. I'll be brief then, because I don't want to repeat. My name is Mark McVeigh. My question is, first of all, I applaud the letter that you sent out recently that said, hey, we know this transition hasn't gone as smoothly, so that's good, but it's been about 3 or 4 weeks. Another billing cycle is dumped in everybody's mailbox. So I would encourage the council to put out, additional messaging, as this gentleman was citing. Look, I'm a data point of 1, but my water bill in 45 days has basically doubled what my normal 60-day bill would be. So when I contacted Manol, yeah, thank you. Their first pushback, which is reasonable, say you must have a leak. I've spent money to hire a plumber, Chris. I know he's quite well known in this community. Yeah, he's been superb, by the way. Not to plug him, but anyway, Chris and his colleague, Jeff, they came out. They spent close to 7 hours the first day, looking, digging, doing everything they can, shutting off every bit of water input, and that little drip indicator was still dripping around. He came back the next day, or I'm sorry, 2 days later, crawled under the house, looked through the house, and said, Mark, your house is dry as a bone. There is no leaks in your system. And even again, he checked, and the little leak indicator is still moving, or that it was stopped, it would move backwards, etc. I've conversed with a couple of my neighbors, similar household size. One has had their bill just stay normal, and the other has seen their bill doubled. I will say this: the people I've talked with at Manol have been very forthright. So I respect that. I can't even make sense of the meters because of the gauges or the reading from previous statements their unit of measure is not consistent with the new ones. I can't match them up. And that was something Linool caught to. They said, yeah, we're using a different gauge, and this is not my profession, it's theirs. Secondly, I really, as I said in my email, I would really encourage you to at least hit a moratorium button on something where for people that are seeing their bills double, because I think there's a financial train wreck. I can keep writing the check for a little while, but I sure as heck am not putting my payment on auto pay, because quite frankly, I don't want to wait 6 months for this to get cleaned up. I know you guys are trying, but I can't be wrong in this, that there's something wrong with how and just as a side note, I surveyed with my neighbors for permissions about 6 of the water meters. Every single one of them was covered with mud, dirt, that sort of thing. So I don't understand how those gauges are even physically being read. I'm sure others will.
Just real quick. So I did respond to your email before the meeting started this evening.
I appreciate that. I haven't seen it, but
I know, and I copied Ms. Coleman in on that to get somebody out to your house. If you could just provide through the email your address or give us a look at your account.
Absolutely, I'll do both.
You have to look at that meter, make sure it's not broken.
Okay.
And if it is, we'll get it replaced. As far as the moratorium, this is exactly what I told in the email. You need to come in front of council. That's not something the mayor can do. So
understood.
Your comment has been heard,
okay.
And as we go through the budget process, that can be a topic of conversation.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Red.
Good evening, council. I'm here tonight to talk about utility rates, and I'm concerned, as other people are, that the communication to the public wasn't timely relating to the migration over to the MyNol account. I don't think it was adequate to notify people on August 1st that your bill was going to be received on August 1st. Next, why were the rate tables and billing not proofed before the mailing and it was outsourced? I thought I had heard at previous meetings they were double checked and triple checked, and then just an easy look at a couple bills that I looked at were glaring to me when we found that the rate wasn't being charged right on the water usage, when they actually, MyNol or whoever did, took the rate and actually multiplied it times 1.5%, when that isn't the part of the bill that you would multiply to make it a 45-day bill. Your next rate increase is scheduled for November 16th, and I'd like to know if that is still going to happen. I did the math on that, and it's actually an 18.5% increase on tiers as well as the base rate. Not 15 as it says in the water study, which that was surprising to me as well. The rates also incorporate hiring a half-time FTE utility billing clerk which I don't believe is hired and to be hired, although I do know that you outsource, so maybe that was absorbed into those rates. The utility rate study used 2018 data, and it was finalized in 2020. So here we are in 2022, and it was front loaded with the capital improvement plan. I know the water reservoir and some other water improvements were planned to be done. I know the water reservoir and the bonds haven't even been started or issued.
The bonds haven't been started. We haven't been issued, but we're going through that process right now.
Okay.
Correct that.
Council has not taken action on any bonds being issued. So that's 17.9 million in new debt that the taxpayers are going to have to pay.
And I'm going to correct you right there too. We're not looking at bonding for 17 point whatever you just said.
Okay, that was
that'll be part of Ms. Coleman's.
That was out of the utility rate studies where I got that number.
We can't afford that, so we're reducing that number.
So it also recommends that an annual review to be continuously compare study outcomes to the actual revenues and expenses, and I think that is should be a very high priority of the council. And then any significant or unexpected changes may require adjustments to the rate strategy. It's not right that a single user, an elderly person, even a family is paying somewhere from $350 to $400 a month, or $800 to $1,000 a month. And I don't live in the city, but I know a lot of family and friends that live in the city, and they have reached out to me and said, why are the rates so high? Why is my bill so high? How can it go from this to that? How come it's doubled? I haven't used more water. I've used less water. You know, why are the bills so high? So I am encouraging council to take a hard and fast look at your budget, at your revenues, at your expenses, and see if the rates that are in the study are actually necessary. If there's some expenses that can be maybe put into a different budget year based on what people can afford. If people can't afford to pay their bills, then they go into delinquency, and then that goes to a lien on their house. And I don't think that's what this city wants. So I'm encouraging you to freeze rates and wait until you have enough time to evaluate the revenues and expenses and see where your rates need to be. Thank you.
And again, I encourage everyone to stick around for Ms. Coleman's presentation this evening. That was the topic of conversation today, is what can be delayed, what has to be done, and those questions will be answered during her presentation. Mr. Deinhardt.
Do we get to ask questions during our presentation? Because I do have lots of numbers to ask on the budget.
Yeah, you can, but you have 5 minutes.
Well, just because you keep saying, you know, stick around. So I want to stick around if I can ask questions. If I can't ask questions, then what the hell is the point of sticking around?
Okay.
So, you know what I mean?
Okay. No, I understand.
Okay. So I want my 5 minutes here, and I'm going to be clear, and I appreciate the look I'm getting from Miss Holland over here. I'm going to start out.
First means Mr. Deinhardt.
But that's okay. If she's going to give me the dirty look, I'm going to pull it out. So for you and Jennifer and Deanna, accountability is what I'm pushing for tonight. Agenda item is, yes, I will talk about the water. I've been one of the fortunate people in the city. I'll call it like it is. My water bill is consistent. I've done it. I'm an accountant, HR person, so I've gone through the numbers and I can break it down per the cost per day, per usage, yada, yada, yada. And I'm square. I'm okay. I'm happy. I've talked to Pete over here several times, asked questions. He's helped me through, you know, on capital expenditures, all that. I fully get where the money's going. But at the same time, my neighbors are in hurting right now. That makes me mad. And it makes me mad when the three of you can go out and I'll talk to you, post on social media, but you can't answer and respond here. And you throw out this stuff, oh, I'm not a council member tonight. You're always a council member. I'm an executive for a Fortune 500 company. If I post stuff on social media or go off the rails, hello, we don't want you at the company. It's the same thing. If you're going to go off the rails, I don't want you on our council. So I look at my neighbors here and say, remember that. And the three of you, I want accountability going forward. And when somebody hears, we were talking about McBee or somebody, have a workshop. How hard is it? I mean, you're sitting here putting a ton of pressure on Ms. Coleman and say, stick around. Have a 4-hour workshop, have a 2-hour workshop on a Saturday and go through and have a discussion. Let everyone ask their questions and find out. Again, I've spent a lot of time with Pete because you know what? I'm willing to do the work and the effort, and I have that flexibility, but not everyone has had that availability. How hard is it for you guys to just go out there and say, let's have a workshop, let's have a conversation and describe and explain the rates, explain the increases, explain what the money's doing, and go from start here. I mean, it's not that difficult, and that's all I'm asking, is for you to give a little bit here. And I appreciate the dirty look.
You're literally a blur, sir. I can look up close or I can see you there. So I don't have my glasses on. I can't take a look. I'm sorry.
Mr. Belial.
Good evening. Thanks for making this opportunity available for me. First thing I wanted to speak about is Planners Days 2023 is June 15th through the 18th. All the usual events. We're working on it. If you'd like to help us, we have a meeting tomorrow night at the VFW at 6 o'clock. Our monthly meetings are the third Tuesdays of every month at 6 o'clock at the VFW presently. And regarding that, we did decide as a group to not apply for any LTAC funds this year.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
You're welcome.
that. I really appreciate that.
The theme contest is a $100 cash prize, and the form is available at planners-days.com. Pint glasses are still available as well, $5 a piece. Okay, for the Woodland Historical Museum, I'm working on a nonprofit database. So if people have nonprofits here in the area, we want to get them on that database so we can include them in our literature and provide for the community that way, as well as on Make a Difference Day on the 22nd. I'll be there working on the fence, fixing the fence. So if anybody'd like to come and help, I'd love to have your help. And beyond that, I look forward to Tracy's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Weil. Gentleman with log cap, sir, you ready?
Yeah. Mayor, thank you. City Council, my name is James Blair, lifelong resident of the city of Woodland. This is the first time I've ever come up here in front of the City Council. I would like to give you my displeased with my water bill. 53 years I've lived in Woodland, and this is outrageous. Not only to me, but my neighbors as well. I can handle $250, but my neighbors are some $600-700 in some cases. I had a customer on Gun Club call me up. Did you see anything going on in her rental yard on the backside of Gun Club? Did they fill a swimming pool? And I said, no, not while we were there. You know, well, why? She said, well, it was a $700 water bill. You know, this is a little old lady that's on fixed income. You know, so we really need to maybe think about slowing down these price increases. Like I hear through the grapevine, now we got another one coming up. I know you guys got a hard job to do, but I've got a hard job to do too. And, you know, I've had my hard job for a long time by making my customers happy. So let's make our customers happy and see what we can do, you know, about these prices. It'll be a good idea. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. We'll move to this side of the room. Yes.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Bernice Vasquez, and I have just one straight question. Why my water bill is managed some company in Texas? I mean, it sounds awful. If we don't have any worthy, good company in Washington that can manage our water here, why it is in Texas? It sounds like somebody is making a big money out of our pockets. So I would like to know why. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Did you still want to speak this evening?
Me?
Yes, ma'am.
Sure. What do I got to lose, right?
Water bill. Yeah.
Hi. This is actually probably the second time that I've ever spoke at one of these meetings. I only come when I feel it's like really super important. I work here in town. I deal with a lot of people. I had a gal maybe in her 70s, fixed income, husband's dead, sat and cried at the counter when I told her that the water bills are going up again because she can't pay the ones that she just got. I know that mine has doubled. I was a single person living in my house. They started at 185 was ridiculous to me, but I paid it. I don't like the taste of the water. I mean, it is what it is though. You know what I mean? It's not well water, all right? So it's up at $400. I decided I don't need a green yard anymore, even though it looks nice, you know, but when people drive into this town, do you want to see a bunch of ran down brown yards and look like a poor community? I mean, I feel like we're somewhat middle class, but we're heading to the poor zone really quickly. And from what I hear, I don't know if it's true, but if we're pumping money into our infrastructure to build 1,000 more homes, I built a custom home. It's 4,500 square foot with a 5-car garage in La Center School District, even though I was in Clark County, should have been Woodland, but they were building all the schools in La Center. I knew our ass was grass, that we were going to pay for that. And I don't have kids, you know, but I knew when I was building that house, we were going to pay for that, even though we weren't going to utilize it. So hopefully the people, when they're building, are going to absorb some of that. The builders can push it onto them, the county, whatever it has to be done, because I sucked it up myself. And it's on social media, okay? I have to stay off of it because I know my rear is gone if I run my mouth on it. So I absolutely have to keep myself in check. I stay off of it. One of the times that I got on there, I was so disgusted because I mentioned where our office was. The parking lot was flooded to the drain. One of the council members stepped up. Oh, well, it's raining. No shit. Ha ha ha, that was funny. You know what I mean? I'm a chick. Okay, make fun of me. It's raining. You know what I mean? It was so ignorant because my fiance puts in underground sewer water. Has been doing it his whole life. He's 52. He looked right at me and says, well, they're going to have a pump truck come out. Duh. You know what I mean? But it was the whole point. Why even say something so silly? You know what I mean? It's just not good. I'm just saying, please, in everybody's positions, just remember the position you hold. Because when I go to the grocery store, everybody knows where I work. And it follows me everywhere. It follows everybody everywhere where you work. And never forget that. It will bite you so hard when you least expect it. So I beg for you guys. I'm not even asking. I am begging for you guys to put a freeze on these bills until we can digest what's going on and kind of give people time to budget or get on some type of programs. I feel so sorry for these people. I mean, I can work extra hours, get a second job, but these old people, it's bad enough their property taxes, everything else. I mean, I feel horrible for them. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
I just want to clear up one thing that you said about the construction. The projects that we're putting in for is not for future development.
Okay.
I mean, capacity, yes, but we're not spending money to build homes or bring anything right now. It's maintenance.
So it's not gonna be funneling to the houses that'll be going in?
Well, it will. They'll have to pay their way.
Okay.
So just to clear that. Oh, and can I get a name from you?
Who, me?
Yes, just like.
I'm anonymous.
All right.
No,
That
Lori
works.
Vaughn, PONN.
All right. Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Vernon Waskus. My lovely wife Bernice talked earlier. I just have two things. The main thing is, why is Washington not? Why don't we have somebody here in the Pacific Northwest, Washington or Oregon? We got plenty of places that can do our bill, and not some yahoos in Texas. There's money. I'm sure it's cheaper to get it here. And second of all, with this the water being so high, it's not even worthy drinking, because every week I go to Winco or to Safeway and I get reverse osmosis water so that we can drink it, because there's too many chemicals, fluoride, chlorine, whatever the heck you guys are putting in it. It leaves speck marks all over the place, and it tastes horrible. So it's insult to injury to have to pay extra money for a sewer bill or water bill, and we don't even drink it. And I'm sure other people are the same way. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Is there anyone else in the gallery that has comments that would like to step forward? All right, and moving to online, we have a number of folks attending, and just for the record, Mrs. Anderson has got that at 7:11. Mrs. Dowdy joined us, so she is online. For those that are online, is there anyone, if you could please raise your hand, stating that you want to speak, and I will call on you. Coulter Bennett.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and City Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for giving me a moment here. Somewhat new resident of Woodland, Washington, but I've lived in the Pacific Northwest. Many communities in the last 12 years, 6, both sides of the state, dry side, wet side, paid utilities everywhere I've lived, city utilities in each, never lived on a well, never lived on property. Yeah, I think you've seen a record turnout here tonight from what I've gathered in your attendance both online and in person. I think that alone is going to speak what I think we were all here to speak for. I just encourage you, City Council and Mayor, to track down these problems. You've got a city full of folks that are upset with what's going on with the utility bills. The rates increases were not a mystery to me, though I pay attention to that sort of thing maybe more than most. I saw the increases coming years ago. The rate tables were out and available for the public to consume. I'm not sure what you can do about that. I will intend to stick around and learn more about what capital improvements are going to be made and try to better further understand the revenue that's coming in off of these utility bills. But here mostly just to echo the concern from the folks of this town. I think you've got a record turnout tonight. I think if nothing's done, you'll see a record turnout each and every week until something's actually done here. Raising money, these projects have to pay for themselves. We understand this funding's not going to come out of thin air, and the city's only got enough options to fund these capital improvement projects. But you've got a town of folks that can hardly afford to get the water out of their tap, and that's a problem. That's a problem for the City Council, and that's a problem for the mayor to solve. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Maybe just do me a favor and put your hand down. Is there anyone else online? Ms. Is it Pelcha?
Yes, it is.
Go ahead.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me. So firstly, I was wondering if you were going to share the email that I wrote stating that was going to be my comment.
It's been given to council and it's been attached to and will be attached to the agenda tomorrow morning. The council does have a copy of it, yes.
Okay, and is it worth reiterating for everyone here tonight or no?
It's absolutely up to you, ma'am. You have your 4.5 minutes left, your 5 minutes this evening. If you want to take some excerpts out of that or read it, 5 minutes is up. It's up to you.
Okay, I'm happy to kind of summarize it as my comment. I'm not going to go into the stats that I put in my email, but basically I did kind of a basic generic look around online about towns that are near where we live, and I obviously this is about the water bill, as is everybody else's comment, it seems like. I noticed that none of the other towns around us are anywhere close. Like, they're not even close. Even Kalama, that has a much smaller population, so the city or the town would definitely be getting less revenue overall from their residents for their water. They're not even close to what we're paying right now, and so I'm just trying to kind of figure out where it's rationalized just alone, not even the things that we're going through right now, but the 18% that we're going to be seeing in a month here. I don't think that I've ever gone up 18% on any bill that I've ever paid in my life. I've talked it over with my dad, who recently turned 70. Same thing. He's never seen that kind of an increase. I also wanted to ask, how does switching to Minol benefit the citizens of Woodland? I heard this question being asked by somebody else at a prior council meeting that I was listening to, and I didn't really hear a clear answer. I was also wondering why the decision was made, and then how does this benefit the town as a whole? The council has stated several times that they haven't increased prices during COVID out of benevolence to the town. So my understanding is that then we were kind of going through a pandemic crisis. I don't see how we're not going through a crisis right now when we have increasing inflation. Gas alone has almost been a 40% increase from this time last year. Foods are at an all-time 40-year high in Clark County alone. And the cost of living in Woodland is 16.7% higher than the national average, up 3.9% from last year. I quoted the sources that I found in that email for you. And so, yeah, I'm trying to find the rationalization between how this is going to be sustainable for everybody that lives here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else online? Seeing none. Moving on to items on the agenda, Mr. Deinhardt.
I'll reiterate again, I want accountability from you all, but I want to make sure that's on the record and everything further. So, budget issues, because I don't know how this works with the budget, but I get 5 minutes to go through budget line items. Is that how this works, Will?
Right
Mr.
now.
Finn?
Is that what you're?
I don't have any idea. You tell me. I mean, I keep seeing emails and yada yada. This is, we have a budget workshop. From what I keep hearing from you, there's nothing that you're going to give us information. So I'm feeling like I'm just going to sit here for an hour and just listen to you regurgitate. So this is my only chance to ask questions now.
You can ask questions now, and then we'll do our best to answer them for you.
Okay, so let's go through this thing. I only got.
It's a multiple meeting process, though. It's not just a one-time deal. So.
Okay, well, let's just start at the top of the list here then. General fund. So what I did, Mr. Boyce gave me the Excel file. I extrapolated, I created a file, made a budget, went through and said, okay, this is what has been spent, revenues through July, said, hey, what makes it reasonable for a full year compared to what you're looking at next year? And then I went through and said, you're whack a little bit here. Okay, so a few things that I feel that way. Property or sales and use tax, about a $500,000 light there. Electric tax, natural gas tax, couple $100,000. And the reason I bring that up is, okay, if we're saying that we're short on tax revenue, get the taxes there that are going to be collected and move them over to the water sewer to reduce people's rates. Let's be creative as a city here to offset this 18% increase, okay? So let's just keep going down the list here. Tell me when my 5 minutes is up. If one of you wants to sign up for 5 minutes, I'll take your time so we can go through this budget. I'm here for us.
It doesn't work that way, Mr. Deinhardt.
I'll let you have my laptop, people. We are all in this together. If I look at the CT clerk record services, I see salaries up there. $80,000 bucks. Again, we outsourced to Minol. Why are we increasing salaries in the clerk records area? $80,000 bucks and adding a position. Doesn't make sense.
I have to ask some questions too to make sure that I understand what you're saying. Are you suggesting that we're adding $80,000?
Absolutely. So you're spent year to date 75 grand. Your proposed budget next year is 156. If I look at what 7 months is, extrapolate it out, you're basically going over this year's forecast of about 75,000 bucks. So that to me is a position.
Okay.
Unless somebody's getting a hell of a raise, then I'll sign up for it. When I look at transfers, and I'm just hitting on the big ones now because I only got so much and got to play your game here. When I look at transfers out on water and sewer, I see there is $800,000 and $400,000 in the 2023 budget. There's no dollars there this year. What are we transferring? $1.2 million out for that.
That would be, I believe that's ARPA funding. Is that correct? That would be the American Rescue Plan money that was given to the city from the federal government.
Okay, so that money though is in the revenues for this year. If I look AARP, yeah, is there?
It did come in this year.
So it doesn't. It's not a one-to-one matchup. So again, I'm not
understanding two allotments.
Right, and so I'm not understanding why then that wouldn't reduce our rates then if we got the money. But
so that money, I just want to answer the question as we go. That money was put to projects that were unknown and unfunded.
So, okay, if that's the case, I mean, God, this is why we need a workshop on the sewer thing for all day, because then if I go look at the projects there that we've spent and the money, I don't see all that project money and dollars being spent. So I'm buying off on what you're saying, but it's not.
Well, I'm not trying to sell you. I'm just saying that that's what we're doing.
Yep. But again, I'm just trying to be creative here and understand what we're doing here on these increases. Parks and Rec, I see that we're decreasing Parks and Rec maintenance, $50,000 over this year. Again, like an individual here said, are we going to go to, brown lawns and everything? Again, immaterial dollars, but I don't understand why we're not giving money to our parks and recreation. An individual talked about earlier from the Action Center. I looked at that line item. The city's only given 10 grand. Again, if our revenues were truly what they are this year, I think we could give more than $10,000 to our community to help our fellow citizens. I appreciate
certain amounts of, or certain pots of money.
We can only give so much.
No. Only certain funding mechanisms are given to them. We just can't write them a check and say, here you go.
Is document recording fees?
So anytime there's a transfer.
So it's for a certain expenditure.
Yeah. So we have a certain line item, and that's what the.
Okay. So if they have a certain expenditure, it could go up to 12. Okay, that's great to know. I appreciate you closing your eyes and sleeping over there, Mr. Burke, as we go through this. This is helpful.
Mr. Deinhardt, I'll allow you one more. You've hit your 5 minutes.
I have hit my 5 minutes. I mean, I can send an email to Pete here. I mean, again.
If you have that ready to go, we can do that. Then
okay. I mean, I see like exit 21, I see professional services of $2.3 million. I see a grant coming in for 2.6. Again, what do we spend in the $2.3 million here? And I see we don't have any expenditures on, when I look at the water, we also have another $2 million of professional services, but then we also have Minel for $72,000. I'm like, what are we doing with all that money?
Those professional services, and Ms. Coleman, correct me if I'm wrong, those are for the specific projects that we have to go out for engineering and those types of things. Is that correct?
Our professional services budget is for project specific, and it is also for generalized maintenance of our overall funds, of our overall facilities, not funds.
And that money
that
that you.
Failure, and we need to have it engineered, it's for that as well.
Okay. And the money for exit 21, and then we'll leave it there, that was all grant dollars that did not come out of the city coffers at all, and that was actually $3.2 million that we've received, which Ms. Coleman is going out for design and engineering beginning in January. We should be able to start that project for that solution of exit 21.
But like water, R&M distribution, we have a budget of $1.3 million this year, and we've only spent $38,000 there.
So
I would be happy to call you and work you through this.
No, I just want to explain this. I think your questions are legitimate, and I just want to say that unfortunately, when some of our bookkeeping was done, sometimes they put the capital projects in repairs and maintenance, and I've gone over that with Mr. Boyce and Mayor Finn, that we really need to break that out to show that it really isn't all repairs and maintenance. Your repairs and maintenance could be a capital project.
Absolutely.
So I asked them to start breaking that out, because we get that on audit as well that says, why do you spend $1 million in maintenance and repairs and maintenance here? You spent $30,000 the year before. Well, because $1 million of that was capital project that was not broken out into a separate GL account. And that's what I've asked them to do moving forward, because it's easier to explain to the public.
Yeah, but we have like capital expenditure of $1.7 million in the budget for WTP. I'm assuming WTP is water treatment plant. I'm not an idiot here. No dollars have been spent there. So.
Well, it's because we're in the middle of a project, and I'll go through that.
And so we're going to spend that between now and the end of the year, and that's part of when I talk about the capital expenditures. That's the reason why our rates have gone up. So
yeah, I'll go through that.
You're going to go through all this.
I'm going to go.
That's why I encourage you to stick around.
And these are my questions where we should be able to have dialogue here, because we should have transparency as residents here to understand what is going on with our dollars.
I don't disagree with you one bit.
Sorry for my 5 minutes.
Mrs. Butler.
Sorry, Mrs. Butler, I must leave.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Oh, can you hear me there? I am here to address action item D, ordinance number 1480, Housing Action Plan Residential Code and Amendments. And I'm glad we have a good crowd because this affects all of all residential owners. It says right here, it impacts all city property owners and it will affect all residential properties. So I just did a quick read over, just flipped through it, and I don't understand a lot of it, but there are some red flags. When I see the word comply with international code, I'm like, wait, do we want to pass an amendment that requires Woodland residents to comply with international codes? I don't think so. And then there's also, it talks about changing development to mixed use. Mixed use means a development with both a commercial and residential component in the same building and or on the same site. That's in residential areas, bringing in commercial also. It also has infill development for residential properties. Infill for residential projects means development of a vacant or underutilized site in a manner where current density is roughly equal to, and goes on. But just this idea of wanting to, going around looking for vacant or underutilized, or property owners that have it. I happen to know of an underutilized site. It's very near my property, and it's an issue. It's a piece of property that has come before City Council and the Planning Commission. We've had the hearing adjuster come, and yeah, it's not a real great situation, and it's unfortunate, but it came into the city at a time it was allowed with a special variance, and it's only for that use. Otherwise, it's for residential, and we really don't want to see some commercials come in. So anyway, this amendment, the city here, City Council, you have the authority to pass, approve, or not approve, or make changes to it. So before you would be voting, I believe it's next City Council meeting. I hope you'll take time to read through this and see what's here. Take a little bit of time, and I hope that you will not approve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. And just so you know, tonight is the first reading of that. Mr. Goddard is here, and so it will be discussed this evening and then brought back again at the next regular meeting, if council so sees fit. Anyone else for items on the agenda?
I have a question. I don't know if it's on the agenda or not.
Okay.
When the Action Center gal mentioned the immigrants coming in and all that, I feel really bad for the people, okay? I think everybody does, given the situation, Ukraine and everybody's been put in. But she starts talking about RVs, tents, and all that. I don't want to live in the hood. I don't want to live in an area like the issues that Portland's having. We really need to get ahead of this somehow. I don't know how, but I would be willing to get on a committee to get ahead of this. And I don't mean to downplay the people like they're not good people. Everybody gets put in really hard positions. And, you know, some people have lost their homes for different reasons and what have you. You know, you go to another country, you have nothing but the clothes on your back and 2 little kids, you know. I would hope that they would help us. So I'm not against helping people. I just, oh my God, don't turn us into Portland, please.
Yes. Thank you.
Let's get ahead of it. If we can.
Anyone online for items on the agenda? Please raise your hand. Seeing no one. And with that, we've come to the agenda itself this evening.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second. Moved by Councilmember Chapman, seconded by Councilmember Smith. Mrs. Anderson?
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Holland?
Aye.
Councilmember Burke?
Aye.
Councilmember Rowland?
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy.
Aye.
All right. And with that, the time is now 7:57. We'll go into recess for 8 minutes, and we'll reconvene.
This conference will now be recorded.
Microphone muted. Councilmember Dowdy, can you hear us?
Yes, now I can.
So we reconvened the meeting at 8:09. And everybody please bear with me, I don't do this every day. So I was quite panicked when he said he wasn't going to be here at all. So, I'm sure you can imagine why. So we'll move on to reports of standing committees, human resources.
I'm putting my notes.
The HR committee met today, and our next meeting will be, I believe it's November 7th.
November 21st, actually.
21st. At 5:30. Can you hear me now?
Can you guys hear her?
Yes. Okay. We went over, we talked about exempt employee contracts, evaluating based on request, minimal financial impacts. Salary commission is still needing applicants. We've only got one so far, Mr. Deckard.
Right here.
We need at least 3 for quorum, 5 to fill out the committee entirely, and you can apply online or contact Mr. Boyce. Police staffing, we have one candidate who I believe just passed polygraph, or no?
No.
Background check.
Background check, he's going to polygraph.
Polygraph, and we have another officer going to the academy next month. And then we have some personnel policies that are going to be reviewed, and there may be some recommended changes. And that concludes the HR committee for today.
Thank you, Councilmember Rowland. And on to finance committee.
That would be me. And Mr. Boyce, it keeps saying 5:30 and we changed our meeting times to 6.
My apologies.
So we met today, finance met today at 6:08. Some of the things we discussed was ordinance 1524 that's on the agenda for the third quarter budget amendment. Mrs. Anderson explained the purpose and the purpose for the accounting practices in that budget amendment. And we also had a pass recommendation to council. We also discussed ordinance 1525 with another due pass recommendation, so we have a place to put the funds for Lake Shore, because that, I think, fund had not been created as of yet, and it needs to be created. Some of the other interesting things, the Humane Society gave us a report that so far year to date, they've had 104 animals as intake from our area. Some of you might not know, but we are contracted with the Humane Society to be our animal control. We also went over sales tax revenue for the city. So in September, the total sales tax of $237,000 decreased slightly compared to August by 2%. Top contenders for generating sales tax revenue for our city is auto and RV sales, which is 43% of the top 20 businesses. Large department stores comprise 21% of the total. Last year in September, auto and RV sales made up 34% of the total top 20 businesses, with large department stores being 23%. So overall, the sales tax revenue remains strong and
continues to steadily grow. And we concluded our meeting at 6:55.
Can I ask a question, just a quick one, just because I don't know? So,
Go ahead.
that 420 shop, there's tax that comes from that, right?
We discussed that on the finance meeting today a little bit.
I just didn't know, I was curious, I know the state does, but I was wondering if the,
From my understanding, we do not get the tax revenue from
Okay.
it, but we are getting fines from them daily. But I think that's a whole nother topic for another.
no, just curious, I was hoping that we just get taxed.
I'm gonna have to stop comments at this point. I would save your questions for an email or have it for next meeting, so. We'll move on to reports of city council. Anybody have anything they would like to report on?
I could.
Absolutely. Council member.
I know. So for everybody who was here, the Woodland Action Center's treasurer, Gail, gave a little bit of a report and ran out of time. One of the things you'll notice if you go to Safeway, they are going to ask you if you want to round up for the Woodland Action Center. And that's turkey bucks. So for every $1 you donate, they will purchase Safeway. Will purchase a full holiday. That money goes to Safeway buying a full holiday meal for clients in our community. We are unique that Safeway allows special dispensation. If you go to Vancouver, their money goes to Clark County Food Bank, where if you shop in Woodland, it stays in Woodland. And then you'll be asked again at Christmas time, and that'll go to Rotary, so they will do Christmas meals. And then I won't cut in on the Chamber's thunder, so I'll leave it at that.
I would just like to say one thing. Maybe two things. I know there's a lot of talk about, not being able to ask questions for council members during the question and comment period. I know all the council members are here after the meetings are over, and I have no problems personally talking to anybody and getting to know anybody. I feel like everybody up here is the same boat. Please come talk to us. I see a lot of posts on Facebook, and the challenge that people don't grasp on Facebook is any time that we post on Facebook, it's a part of public record. So I personally take a screenshot of every comment that's made on there, and I email it back to my city email so that if somebody does a public records request, they can get that info. So I would encourage everybody to please send an email. That way, if there is public records requests, that people can be held accountable here. And Facebook is not a great avenue for council members to be held accountable. So please, send the emails. Everybody reads them, and not every single one of them responds to, because some of the emails we get are pretty generic, cut and paste. So you're not going to get a necessarily email that, but there is some emails that we get that we truly take serious. I got one email about the funding for low-income housing on the water bill specifically, and was asked to bring it to the finance committee, which we did discuss today, and we want to bring that as a workshop to discuss that. So it does help, and I would encourage everybody to please send emails, and it is important. So, and I think we all understand, we all pay our water bills just like you, and there's nothing more painful than increasing my own water bill. I do not like increasing my bills at all. So we are all in the same boat, and I get it. I think every one of us gets it. It's not going unnoticed. So. Does anybody else have anything? Just gonna skip over Ms. Miller. She's been waiting patiently.
Yes.
Ms. Miller.
I didn't want to jump up and assume.
Chamber of Commerce update. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Good evening, Council. Denise Miller, Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce, and we run the Visitor Center. Oh goodness, I have a lot of stuff, but I will try to be quick. Council and all the departments, I already gave you guys the 3 little cool sheets that I'm going to be talking about. You have the upcoming event sheet. I'm not going to read these all to you because you've all been talked at a lot already, but they're also on the email that you guys get sent out. The trick or treat stuff, as well as the VFW is going to be doing, and I'll talk about that more in a second. Visitor center stuff, information to give you guys. Johnson Observatory will be closing the building up there for like the movie and all that good stuff on November 1st. The gates will remain open until there's a significant amount of snow, then they close the gates as usual. Ape Caves, the permit will no longer be needed to after 10/27, so the 27th, that's this next Thursday. So you can still go up there and you can go through the caves and all that good stuff, but you do not have to have that time ticket anymore. Same with them, they will close the gates once the first snowfall happens. I had the pleasure of attending the Washington State Tourism Conference last Tuesday and Wednesday. Wow, that was a lot of information. It was the first one they've had in about 15 years. I got to talk to a lot of people in our county, Clark County, Cowlitz County, as well as some of the bigger municipalities like Seattle and Travel Portland was also there. I do have all the numbers. I could bore you guys with it, but I won't. The one thing that everyone was surprised to see is a lot of the larger communities use the geofencing and Datify, which is a company. Essentially, they are able to track how they're getting tourists into their town, which is really cool because then you can actually put tangible data and ask for grants and money. TikTok is the way that most of the tourists are learning about communities. I'm going to be learning how to make TikToks to try to bring tourists into our town. Bear with me if you see them. I take good pictures, but videos, we're going to learn. We're going to do this, guys. So I started a TikTok account. Don't go to it yet. There's nothing on it. But it's called Discover Woodland. So the whole idea is it's not just going to be chamber members, but it's going to be essentially the cool things of just Woodland. And what was neat about this conference is these giant, I call them giant compared to us, these larger communities are like, the videos that get people to come, it's not like hey, look at this like cool event we're having. It's like, look at this pretty stream. Look at this cool coffee shop you can hang out at. So just like videos with no people talking and super short, not those ridiculous 10-minute long ones. So tourism, okay, so chamber. So we had our annual meeting on the first Tuesday of October. That is when our annual meeting is every single year. That is when we vote in any new officers on our board. This is when we change any of our bylaws. Since we are a membership, those had to be voted on by the membership. So a couple things were changed. We can go more depth if needed. But bylaws that were approved was we actually lowered the amount of our board members. Did I do something? Oh, there was we had a 12-person board. And so we reduced it down to 9 members on our board, as well as giving the mayor a non-voting position to sit on our board meetings to continue our relationship with the city. We also the chamber supported the mayor's request to the Cowlitz County LTAC committee for the potential civic center. We sent the letter in support of that, and that was voted on by the membership as well. Okay, fun things. I told you I was going to have fun things. So we'll do the kids stuff first. I'm going to show this behind me too. So every year we do Trick or Treat the Street downtown Woodland. It is on the 28th. It's a Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. We shut down the street. Something that's really cool. We're doing a couple new things this year. We are allowing businesses who are not in downtown to actually set up a tent, a table, a bag of candy, essentially come join. So like Fiber was like, hey, we always give out candy, but we're not downtown, so nobody comes. So like, bring a tent, set up your tent, hand out candy. So we're gonna have a lot of, I'll say a lot, we're gonna have extra businesses than just the normals down there. And the other really cool thing that I think Deanna for helping me make sure this happened was I really wanted to see how we could connect it with the community more. So tell all your kids to bring in non-perishable items, canned goods, stuff like that. We'll get a cool list, a generic list I'll ask the Action Center for, to the chamber tent, and they get a full-size candy bar, not those fun-size ones, but a full-size candy bar, as well as a goodie bag that has a toothbrush, Silver Dental in it, a coloring book, and a couple other little cutesy things. So we are really trying to support our Action Center as well as, bread, get full-size candy bars. At the same time, the VFW will be doing a hot dog dinner for $5. You get a bag of chips, a hot dog, and a bottle of water for $5. So go get them some candy and then go get them some food. We are also doing our Woodland Business Costume and Decorating Contest. So if you are a Woodland business within city limits, because we can't travel too far, because we have a lot going on that day, on Friday the 28th, just sign up with us, and we are going to be doing a decorating contest as well as costume contest for the businesses. So let's see here. I think that is all I have. That's all I have for you. Don't be all excited at once.
Anybody have any questions for Ms. Miller?
Cool.
Seeing none?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to reports of city officers, and mayor has left, so Mr. Boyce.
Okay, I'll keep it short. Wanted to remind everyone about Make a Difference Day again, October 22nd. Planning Commission is meeting this Thursday, and wanted to let council know that Public Works Director Coleman and myself are going to the IACC conference for the next couple days to try to educate ourselves to find funding for more funding for projects. So I'll just leave it at that tonight.
Thank you. Make a Difference Day, is this the first time we've done it since COVID? Did we do it last year?
We did not.
So it's been a couple of years, so there's probably a lot extra that needs to be done, I'm guessing, since it's been building up for 2 years. This isn't an annual thing we were doing?
It is.
So I would encourage everybody out here to donate a little bit of time. That's why I was asking how many hours it goes for. Because I think my wife and my kids are gonna make it, and then we have youth sports after that, so.
Is Dennis coming back for it?
I don't believe Dennis will be at it this year. Due to health problems.
It's his thing for so long.
It is, and I should say he might show up anyway, knowing Dennis, so I hope he does, but we'll see.
I got a message that the live broadcast died. Is that something?
The what?
The live broadcast died?
The YouTube?
Yeah, I don't know.
Let me look.
That's something we can work on as well. We're continuing on.
Doesn't tell me it is.
Says it's running.
That was my wife who told me that, so.
So you know she's ready.
Yes, she's watching.
Don't tell her she's wrong.
Yeah.
No, you're live.
Is it still live?
I don't think, did we come back from the break?
Yeah, I said it did, but.
Yeah, because we could hear the other council member.
She's on the go-to meeting. She's not on the YouTube channel that goes. Oh, sorry. So,
Yeah, it's.
okay, we'll keep
It
going on.
still, will be back after the meeting will start soon. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it is saying that.
I got 14 subscribers. Where's it?
Should we keep going, or you want to try to figure this out?
We can keep going because we've got YouTube.
We're going to be a long meeting if we don't keep going. So, so at this time, it's moved to the consent items. So, Chair will accept a motion to the consent items.
Move to approve consent items.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Chapman, seconded by Councilmember Rounds.
Rolling.
Rolling. It's an R. Bear with me.
It's all right.
Carol's here.
Sorry. Ms. Anderson. Please roll.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Burr.
Aye.
Councilmember Rowland.
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy.
Aye.
Motion has passed. Moving on to action items. Action item B, 1480 Housing Action Plan Residential Code. And Mr. Goddard, would you like to speak on this before we take any motions?
Sure. So just for the record, my name is Travis Goddard. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Woodland. Donna Butler had mentioned some comments at the beginning, and I just wanted to address those real quick. The mixed use and the infill reference, we are actually proposing definitions for those terms because there's already discussion in the code, but it doesn't define what a mixed use or what an infill project is. And so we're simply trying to do a code cleanup for clarifications. And then the other one that she mentioned was international codes, and I'm not sure where she actually gets that from. Ordinance section 16 is changes to the accessory dwelling units. And my guess is she might be referring to number 9, which talks about accessory dwelling units, which are mother-in-law apartments or downstairs apartments or above garage apartments. It says that they have to meet the building code, which is now called, used to be called the Uniform Residential Code. Now it's called the International Residential Code. So it simply means fire code, electrical code, mechanical code. Those are now called the international standards because More Than America applies those construction standards. So that's the only reference I think that might be applicable for the international code. So I will contact Donna and make sure that I'm on the right section, but I don't find international anywhere else in that.
Okay. Thank you for answering those questions from previous. So at this point, the chair can accept the motion regarding ordinance 1480, Housing Action Plan, Residential Code Amendments, first reading.
Move to approve ordinance 1480, Housing and Action Plan, Residential Code Amendments, first reading.
Motion by Councilmember Chapman, seconded by Councilmember Burke. Councilmember Chapman?
Yeah, like I said, this is to clean up languages and stuff. It's what it's doing and stuff. So we're not rewriting anything. We're just cleaning up the language.
Councilmember Burke?
I agree.
Any further discussion? Seeing none.
Anderson? Councilmember Dowdy?
Aye.
Councilmember Rowland?
Aye.
Councilmember Holland?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Burke?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye. Motion has passed. Moving on to action item E, ordinance number 1525, create new fund 334, Lakeshore Sanitary and Water. First and final reading. Chair can accept the motion.
Move to approve ordinance 1525, create new fund 334 for Lakeshore Sanitary and Sewer construction.
I will second it. Councilmember. Sorry. Motion by Councilmember Chapman, seconded by Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Chapman?
Yeah, this is the basic, we got the money, we just got to label it so everybody knows what it's for.
I second that. This is starting the fund for that. It's to help accountability and track where the money's at and where it's going. Any further comments? Seeing none. Sarah?
Councilmember Holland?
Aye.
Councilmember Burke?
Aye.
Councilmember Rowland?
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye. Motion has passed. Moving on to action item F, ordinance number 1524, third quarter 2022 budget amendment, first and final reading.
Move to approve ordinance number 1524, third quarter 2022 budget amendment, first and final reading.
And I will second it. Motion by Councilmember Chapman, seconded by Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Chapman?
Yeah, this is just finalizing the books for this final third quarter and stuff.
I second that. It's just pretty standard info that needs to be done. further comments? Ms. Anderson?
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Holland,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Rowland,
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye. Motion has passed, and at this time, it is time to move into the workshop. And I know there was previous comments about whether there could be comments or discussion during the workshop. I do not think there's time for discussion. Any questions that you do have, to please write them down and email to council and Mrs. Coleman, thank you. So that way she can get you the answer. The budget meetings are still ongoing every week. We'll be here every Monday. And we can get you the answers then in person, or she can get you the answers in email. But I would encourage everybody who has questions to please document them or come back in for the next meeting and ask your questions during citizens' comment time. Ms. Coleman?
Is it my turn?
It is your turn.
Oh, are you sure? I don't know. Everybody ready? I'm not. I don't think I need the microphone. I talk pretty loud, but
Do it anyway.
Yeah. You can bring it on.
You need the microphone if you want people at home
Don't
to
get
hear
water.
you.
It's on. It was bad time. Okay, so I want to start off by saying I am not going into the nitty-gritty detail of the utility rates. I will go into the reason why I'm not going to do that, but and you'll be able to see that when I go on here, because it's all online. It's been online for 2 years, and I'm going to explain to you how the rates are spent. So first I want to say that everybody who lives here knows that Woodland was established in 1906. The city's 116 years old. Some of the infrastructure in the ground is 100 years old. And so when you look at, when I'm showing you the budget, and when you look at the budget, you need to look at your city. You don't need to look at everybody around you. We don't care about Ridgefield. Why don't we care about Ridgefield? Because 90% of their infrastructure is new, right? We don't care about Vancouver, because Vancouver is, what, 4 or 5 times the size, different infrastructure. You look at your city and what you need to maintain, and what you need to do to be able to have good water, good sanitary, and provide for your citizens. In order to do that, we did a utility rate study 2 years ago. Actually, it started 3 years ago, and it was approved 2 years ago. But if you want to look at rates and you want to look at compare other cities, on the City of Vancouver website, there's a utility bill comparison. And if you go on there, they take 24 cities. And our city is not in there. But when I looked at it on the 24 cities, if you look at your utility bill, and everybody's talking about the water bill here, it's not the water bill, it's the utility bill. Your utility bill includes your water, your sewer, your garbage, and the stormwater. And so out of those 4 components, stormwater is new. It was just added. Your garbage increased through the garbage company. That wasn't an increase with the City of Woodland. That was from your garbage company. It was all presented at council, and everybody had the opportunity to talk about that. And the increase has been going on for years.
That's a pass-through, right, for the garbage?
Yes, it is. Thank you very much.
The city pays that to try to help lower the cost.
Right. And then we have the water and the sewer. So really, it's a utility bill that everybody's complaining about, because I think when I've evaluated most of the utility bills, it's been the sewer that I've seen most of the complaints on. And the recent that I have seen the most complaints on, not that you have heard the most complaints on. And I work for Public Works, and it's the one that I receive the calls on, and the calls that I get and the emails that I get are the sewer. That's what I've been receiving it on. People say water, but when they look at it, it's actually their sewer. So then the other thing is that, so when you go on the City of Vancouver website, you do a utility bill comparison. It shows you that the average sewer base is $67.73 for the 24 cities. Ours is $35. The average water base is $38.29 for the 24 cities. Ours is $29.77. The average stormwater is $16.35. Ours is $4.60. All of this, I just want you to know, is out there, and we have a utility rate study that's available to you. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just telling you that if you want to go out and compare and you want to look at stuff, you can look at that way to educate yourself as far as where you guys are in comparison to others. But again, when I look at the city of Woodland, I don't look at what everybody else is doing. I look at what is our infrastructure like, and what do we need to do to our infrastructure, not everybody else. But if you wanted to do that, it's there available for you. So with that being said, when I first came to Woodland, and I'm really glad that you guys are all here. When I first came to Woodland, we didn't have anybody that ever showed up, turned out. And in the 5 years, I think this is probably the second biggest turnout that we have had. And I'm very appreciative of you guys being here, because without you being here, we can't explain it to everybody. You can give this, but hardly anybody ever watches the YouTube, and nobody comes here. So you got to come here to educate yourself, to ask questions. And I'm glad that you're here, and I thank you for being here. And I encourage you to come here for the presentations, or at least on a Friday night when you have nothing better to do, watch the council meeting from the past Monday. I will tell you too that on your utility bills, that 17% of your rate goes to staffing, 42% goes to our daily operations, and 41% goes to the utility projects that I'm going to cover in this presentation. So when you're looking at your rate, it's not 100% going to utility projects. You have staffing at 70%, 42% daily operation, your chemical treatment, your sewer plant treatment, your road maintenance, and then you have 41% that goes to our utility projects that I'm going to talk about.
Really quickly, can you just tell us Midol, where are they at?
Time for questions, comments. Please address through an email. I'm going to have to stop any comments at this point, please.
So the point is for me to try to educate you right now, and then for you to be able to come back and ask questions after I educate you.
Is there handouts in on this? I mean, I'm just asking. I mean, we're supposed to just write down.
Please.
Be valid.
I understand there's valid questions, and I'm asking to please write your questions down and send them through an email, or come back during questions, comments at the next meeting. We will be having another one on Monday.
So the rate study that I'm going to show you where you guys can find that, and in order, all of this is available online, and I'll go over that in my presentation where you can find that and where it's available. So in the rate study, it does state in the rate study that was approved 2 years ago that there's a 15.5% increase in your water rates, from 2021 to 2023, 15.5% increase each year. Average, thank you. After that, it drops from 2024 to 2030 to 5.5%. So in the first couple of years, it's front loaded, and I'm going to go over the capital projects to show you why that is. And then it drops. And I encourage you to read the utility rate studies that are out there. It's not very long, very easy reading, and I'd be more than happy to help you afterwards after you've read that as we go on. But that's just where I want to start, kind of based on comments that I've heard tonight. I just wanted to start out with some of that information that I didn't really have in my presentation, but I just wanted to start out ahead of time. So if we can, I'm going to present now the budget request for the Public Works Department for 2023. So, and I'm gonna read this verbatim because I think this is important for everybody to know. Public Works is the entire city's infrastructure, and we provide the fundamental facilities and systems to serve the community as a whole. Our infrastructure that we maintain, composed of roads, parks, public building spaces, street lights, water, sewer, and stormwater. And as you know, these services are essential to enable and sustain and enhance your living conditions. And then also we maintain our parks to be a Tree City USA. And we've been a Tree City USA for, I can't even say how many years. So our public works is comprised of 15 employees that we have, and provides service and maintenance to 34 miles of streets, 28 miles of sewer line, 42 miles of water line, 520 hydrants, 434 catch basins, 70 dry wells, 400 street lights, and 12 public buildings. That's what we maintain with the tax dollars and the utility dollars. Since our city limits reside within Clark and Cowlitz County, in addition to Pacific and Atlantic being extensions of Interstate 5, we work closely and partner with WashDOT, Department of Transportation, Cowlitz County Road, Clark County Roads, and Cowlitz Community And our goal from Public Works is to provide a safe environment to work and play for you guys to live here within the city. So that's the goal of Public Works, just for those of you who didn't know what we maintain. Next, please. The budgets that I go over that I'm going to present tonight are outlined here. I'm only going to go over one section of the general fund because that was presented in our city administrator's presentation. I'm going to go over our park fund, our street fund, our water, our sewer, our stormwater, and grants. So in the general fund, I mainly focus on the police station. I don't know if you guys noticed walking in, but it was just freshly painted. This police station and council chambers was established in 2014. We are in a balanced budget right now under this section, and I've asked them to call out. Remember at the beginning of the meeting, I said that I've asked them to call out a different GL so we can track better. It's easier to maintain and track. I've asked them to pull out the police station so you guys can see what's going right here at the police station and your council chambers. So I requested $30,000 for HVAC units because the building's now 8 years old and we had the HVAC units inspected. Year before last, they said we need to start budgeting for replacement of those. So I budgeted $30,000 for the HVAC units, some of them, not all of them. Landscaping and artwork, the police station generator that's been asked for a couple of years. And so the total request for police station is $175. Of that, we are not funding any of it because there is no funds in the general fund. So that's what I requested, and there's no money budgeted for that at this time. If you look at the very bottom of the slides that I'm showing where it says totals, and you see in this particular slide it says the totals, it says 31%. That's what I budgeted for versus what I requested. So meaning that to get a balanced budget, I requested 31% of what is needed, and of that, only 31% is in a balanced budget. Anything else above and beyond that will have to come from different funding. So at our park fund, I budgeted $5,000 for Horseshoe Lake management. That's for maintaining our water quality at Horseshoe Lake testing. We have received notification of a leaky valve at Horseshoe Lake. This is an initial budgeted item request of $25,000. So for those of you who are not aware, that Horseshoe Lake is provided water from the Lewis River, and there's a valve that we open up to allow water to flow in from the Lewis River, and then it flows out from the Lewis River to be able to circulate that water. There is a leaking valve which will not allow us to close the valve to not allow water to come into Horseshoe Lake, so that means the lake is going to rise. And so that valve, unfortunately, is the city's responsibility per WashDOT. It was handed over to us, I'm not sure how many years ago. I don't have that paper in front of me, but it is our valve to maintain. So the $25,000 is just an estimated amount I put in there. It is 35 feet in the ground. So I'm going to try to come up with a different way to solve the problem of the water leaking into the lake. But that's just an initial budget request for that leaking valve. The Horseshoe Lake garbage cans, if you guys have ever been out at Horseshoe Lake, you can see we've brought in some new garbage cans, and the garbage cans are $500 a piece. Seems like a lot of money, but that's the cheapest we find them. We tried to do about 8 per year to get them. The ones that we're replacing have holes in the bottom of them. Then we have citywide park tree inventory, GIS layer maintenance care. So we're at Tree City USA. We haven't requested this before, but we put $5,000 in the budget to be able to do a citywide park tree inventory to inventory all of our trees. We have some older oak trees. We have some white oaks that are protected that we have to maintain or we have to save because they're a protected species. What we're going to do with them. So we put in a budget of $5,000 from a consultant that we talked with. And the thing with that is we're going to try to get grant dollars for that, but as of right now, that's what we budgeted. We have applied for an RCO grant for artificial turns up at Scottville Park. We ranked 17 out of 34 on that grant. So I'm requesting $87,000, but as of this time, we're not going to budget the $87,000 because we haven't received the grant yet. So there's no sense in asking for it if we don't have the grant funds. And so the total budgeted amount for parks is $39,000 at this point. Just to give you a little overview of our street projects in 2022, we have done the Lakeshore Brandon overlay and 10-foot bike and pedestrian, which is being worked on right now. As you are driving to see that Lakeshore is closed. We have 50 street light head change out that we completed out of the, does anybody remember how many street lights I told you we had?
400.
Yep, out of the 400, we have 150 left to do a full conversion on our city. I've been working on it for 5 years to do a full conversion of HPS to LED, which saves us money in our utility rates.
Can I ask a quick question?
Nope, no questions. Yes.
The purple lights.
Those are defective lights, and if you see those, you need to report them to Public Works, and then we replace those.
Okay.
Most of the time, those have been put in by a contractor, and then we just have to notify the contractor and get the lights changed out. But if you see purple lights, not supposed to be purple.
I think at the intersection of exit 21, there's a couple purple lights there.
So those are WashDOT. So just let me know after the meeting, and I'll go ahead and notify WashDOT for that. And so we have, so again, 150 left to be able to do all the change outs to all LED in the city of Woodland. We have the West Scott Railroad pedestrian crossing, which is going to start in about 30 days, and that's on West Scott Avenue. We have the Gorick Street paving rework that we completed, and then we did the Gorick Street overlay and 88 ramps on Gorick Street. We did sidewalks on Pacific Avenue, sidewalks on Love Street, sidewalks on Atlantic, Hoffman Street sidewalks, and we did hot mix asphalt patching repairs. Everything that I'm talking about is not our regular maintenance with the exception of that hot mix asphalt repairs. It's capital projects that we do that are spending of capital dollars, not of general dollars, general maintenance dollars. Okay, so what I've asked for in the street fund, which is our line item 104, abandoned public works shop, we have a number of equipment that have been sitting out in the elements. And so if you drive by our public works shop, you can see to maintain your equipment, your backhoes, your trucks, your tractors, so on and so forth. It's best to have them under cover, store them under cover. So we have budgeted $45,000 for an additional shop at the Public Works Department. We have, and that's just a regular pole barn. We have new computers that are needed for Public Works as our computers are outdated, and one of our computers crashed for our SCADA system for our sewer system, so we just replaced that this year. I have a third of the truck cost. If you take a third of the truck out of water, sewer, and street, you'll see this truck cost in all three of them. This is the last vehicle that we'll be replacing we replaced a truck for the water plant, the sewer plant, and we've taken those trucks and moved them down to the street department. And then we have one truck left to replace at our street department. And then after that, next year's request will be for a backhoe, because our backhoe is old enough from the 90s, we can't get parts for it anymore. You'll see that next year. So it's $15,000 for a truck replacement. I mean, we shouldn't have to look at any more truck replacements for, I would say, a solid 10 to 15 years, which will be good. We have our Safe Routes to School Phase 1 project that I've requested in there, but I haven't made budgets for there because we have not received the grant yet. And then we have our Bike and Pedestrian Safe Routes to School Phase 2. So for those of you who do not know what that is going from Lewis River Road all the way to Gun Club. That's Phase 2, and then from Gun on Lewis River State Route 503, and then from Gun Club all the way to the intermediate school, making sure that we have a sidewalk path for our children and bikers all the way to that intermediate school. So that's what we've applied for grant funding there. But since we haven't received the grant, we haven't asked for it to be budgeted yet. But I will tell you that we also received $235,000 from legislative dollars to help us match for the grant that we requested, that $4.2 million, which put us up in another category for scoring on that grant. We also have the West Scott Ave full depth reclamation projects. There's 2 projects. We received 2 grants. It's a $2.5 million project. That's going from Pacific Avenue all the way down West Scott to railroad tracks, and then from the railroad tracks all the way to Sherman Way. So we have a $30,000 match, or excuse me, a $100,000 match for those 2 grants, $50,000 apiece. But out of that, you're getting $1.25 million in federal funding. Then we have Exit 21, which is, we received a $600,000 grant from the CWCOG, and of that we have an $81,000 match. and that's to put towards the redesign of exit 21. And then we have the Gun Club Sidewalk Bike Lane grant of $380,000, and our match is $59,000. And I don't think it's showing on there. Oh yeah, it does there. It didn't show on mine. And then, so of that total, we have, 368. I'm asking for 303. So the only thing I'm not asking for is the safe routes to school and the bike and pedestrian, because we have not been awarded those grants yet. So at this time, I'm asking for just $303,000. Which is 82% of the request for streets. Okay, so now I'll get into a little bit of the water project. So I encourage you all, and this will be available online. I encourage you all to go to our, and it actually was supposed to be on the agenda tonight. It did not get posted on the agenda. Travis said it'll be posted tomorrow.
So these documents are available online, but this presentation will be on the website tomorrow.
But not the presentation, but these links were supposed to be on the agenda item, and it didn't get posted on there, so it'll be on there tomorrow for everybody to have. But these are all online. They've been online for a couple of years. Now the sewer we're going to has been online since 2017. So your utility rate study for what you're being charged right now is online. It's under that link. You'll be able to click on. You can just go into our website, on the city website of utilities, and it says right there, 2020 utility rate study for water, sewer, and stormwater. It's a short document. It's very user friendly. It's very easy to read. I encourage all of you to read it because then you can ask specific questions that I can answer, or I can get answers for you. So that's the first thing I'd recommend. The second thing is, which is very boring to read, and I don't encourage any of you to read it, but if you want, you can. It's the 2020 water system plan. It is nearing completion for approval from the Department of Health. And it is, I think, there's 32 chapters, but of that, you can look at the capital chapter, and that tells you about your capital infrastructure. It says right on there, one of the chapters that says capital. So you can look at what your capital infrastructure is required from your water system plan. So currently, right now, what's going on, what we're doing water projects today, we're putting water in Lakeshore Avenue. And if I put an asterisk by the dollars, it means we're using some ARPA funds, because a lot of people want to know, what kind of ARPA funds are we using? So that's a $681,000 project. And then we also have the water treatment plant transfer pump rebuild replacement. That's $22,000. So right now we're currently spending $703,000 of the utility funds. After that, what we've already completed is $3.4 million worth of water projects. And so when I've talked to you about your utility projects at 41%, that 3.4 million is your 41% that we're talking about our utility rates. So we did the filter number 1 project, that was $466,000. We completed that. We did the West Scott Railroad water crossing, so we didn't have a water line that went underneath West Scott Avenue. We completed that, and that was $553,000. And that was some ARPA funds we used for that. The Davidson Railroad water line crossing, we increased the water line going under Davidson Avenue. That was another $500,000. We used some ARPA funds, but of that, $500,000 was grant dollars of that. So we only used $52,000 of ARPA funds. We did the Scott Hill Booster Station. That's nearly a $600,000 project. We did, we updated our HVAC system, and we did electrical improvements in the water treatment plant. That was nearly $1 million project. We did, we had to do a water system plan every so many years. It's required by the state. That was $120,000. We did stump and debris removal to prepare for our reservoir number 4. That's a requirement of the Department of Health. So we did that removal up at our site. That was $38,000. We clean our lagoons yearly, which is from the back wash from our water reservoirs and from pigging the line at the Randy Well. That's an annual expense, and that was $34,000 we spent. We put in an automatic gate up at the water plant, and we put some gravel entryway because we had to change the gate alignment due to the Scott Hill Park complex going up there at the water plant, near the water plant. And then we did a water relocate at Old Pacific Highway, which was $62,000. So we spent $3.4 million in the last couple of years, and we have $700,000 going on right now. So that's just to give you an idea of where some of your money has been spent. And then this next year, what I'm requesting in Fund 401 is a third of the truck cost, the vehicle cost that we're looking at to replace one truck. The filter, the face, so we have 3 water filters up at our water plant. We have 1, 2, and 3. We completed filter 1, but I didn't ask for any money for filter 2 because we didn't have the money in the budget. So that's been withheld, but filter number 2 that was on schedule to be done this year came in $150,000 higher than what last year's replacement was to do, not replacement, excuse me, restoration was to do. So this filter bids just came in last week at nearly $600,000. It was only $400,000 the year prior. So a lot of that you guys know is piping costs and long lead times on materials. But we were surprised at nearly a $200,000 increase. Then we have our 1.5 million gallon water reservoir that is a $5 million cost. That is a requirement right here of the Department of Health sanitary sewer report that we had. We had a sanitary sewer audit by the Department of Health this last year, and we have a leaking reservoir number 2. It's nearly upwards of $1 million to replace our 500,000 gallon concrete tank that was installed nearly, I think, 50 years ago. And so instead of spending $1 million on a 500,000 concrete water reservoir, the Department of Health said you're due to have a new water reservoir of an additional 1 million gallon capacity in the next couple of years. You need to decommission your 500,000 gallon reservoir, and you need to build a 1.5 million gallon reservoir. And it needs to be done by next year, 2023. So this is mandatory for the Department of Health sanitary safety report. So it's up there as a project that is required by your Department of Health. So that's the $4.9 million. Now we have new AMR meters. A lot of people complain about the meters in town. So we have gone out and solicited some different AMR, which is automated meter reads. This will allow us to have automated reading systems. The meters are more accurate. Nobody goes by to read them. It's an electronic system. You can do AMI or AMR. AMR is a little cheaper. The meters that we have found, they have a 50% off right now, and it's not 50% off because they're bad. They're just trying to sell because times are hard for a little bit everybody. So they're saying, if you buy our meters by a certain date, we can give you a 50% discount. They can easily be converted to an AMI meter later on. That gives instantaneous reads, just like this with your water flow. So if there's a leak, you know it right away. The AMR does not do that, but it's easier to read. So that's a $1.5 million to change out all the meters within Woodland. Then I have an asbestos water line replacement. So we have, remember I told you our city's 116 years old. We still have water, we have asbestos water lines in our city still. We got rid of all the wood ones. I think we did the last wood one about 10 years ago. So, but we still have an asbestos line that's all the way down West Scott Avenue. Now, as a good steward of money, what you want to do is if you're doing a project, and full depth reclamation of West Scott Avenue means you take the whole asphalt out, the pavement and everything, you rebuild the base of your road, and then you put a brand new road down. So you should be good to go for 15 years, right? When you're doing that, the last thing you want to do is have a water line failure and have to tear up your road and replace the water line. So what you do is when you're doing a full depth reclamation, you say, okay, let's get the water line in there anyway, since we already have the grant dollars to tear up the road. Let's go ahead and get our water line in. So we're using ARPA money to replace that water line, that old asbestos water line in that road. So that's what that is for. And then we have our Randy well cleaning. So as you guys know, we get our water from a Randy well, which are arms that go out from the Lewis River, and it takes groundwater and surface water. It takes groundwater underneath the Lewis River and surface water, and it pulls that back. Well, you have to clean those laterals. We have 4 laterals. You have to keep those laterals clean. They haven't been cleaned for 4 years, so it's time to clean those. They really should be cleaned every 2 to 3 years, but we're going to clean them. It's like I said, it's been 4 years. We did have it out to bid. We didn't receive any bids on it, so we have to put it back out to bid again. So that's what we have on the Randy well. Then our frequency drive, our variable frequency drive at the Randy well has gone bad, so we need to replace that. So with this, we have $8.1 million in water projects, and I'm asking for $895 to keep a balanced budget. So 11% of the total money that's needed is what I'm asking for our water fund. So then we'll go next to sewer. I know this is a lot to take in, so this will be available online so you can look at it and you can you can take time to just look at it and absorb it, because I'm going through it kind of fast. But I will tell you that this is online and it'll give you time to digest it a little bit. So our sewer projects in 2020, 2022, again, the sewer rate study is online and the general sewer plan, approved general sewer plan is online. We currently are in $712,000 worth of projects. We're putting in sanitary sewer on Lakeshore. You can see the project going on right now. That's a $682,000 project. We're using some ARPA money for that. And then we have our lift station backouts to maintain our lift stations for preventive maintenance for clogging. And then we completed about nearly $1,963,000 of projects. We did a headwork screen project, which keeps our pumps from clogging up at the sewer plant. We did Old Pacific Highway utility improvements, which was a $129,000 job. That's where we tied in the sewer line on Old Pacific Highway. We did lift station number 5 rebuild, and that was a $400,000 project. We have our Millard sewer cleanup and repair that we just completed. That was an emergency repair of $8,000. We had our Fraser sewer line repair. That was an emergency repair of $10,000. We had lift station number 1 bypass for repair, which was $16,000. That was another emergency repair. And lift station 6 was an emergency repair of $50,000, $7,000. And then we had some sewer line videos. When I first came as a public works director, we had a superintendent that has been here. Well, he retired last year after 43 years. And one of the things he shared with me was that Woodland is a reactive city, not a preventive maintenance city. So we react to everything, but we don't prevent anything from happening. So that's kind of why we went for our lift station backouts. We spent, I don't know if you remember, Monty, but we used to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on call-outs on the weekends because our lift stations were being backed up because they're clogged with rags and debris. And since we started going to this preventive maintenance of $30,000, we've saved at least 3 times that amount from call-outs in labor hours. So we're trying to be a preventative city to save money versus emergency, call everybody out all hours of the night. You got to call somebody out. It costs you twice the amount when you call a contractor out in the middle of the night.
We started that same process at the airport again. We used to do it in the past, and it's coming back around.
Yeah.
And our calls to our sewage stations are significantly less.
But if you don't have the funding, then you can't do preventive maintenance either, right? So anyway, so that's kind of what we've done with our sewer funds so far.
Tracy,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowland has to take off, so since we're in a workshop, I don't think attendance is mandatory at this point. Yeah, so I think she has her daughter she has to take care of.
I'm a single parent to a disabled child.
Okay, so then the next slide. So in our sewer funds, what I am asking for is, we already budgeted for lift station 8 upgrades. We're hoping to get them done today. Excuse me, not today. This year, I apologize for that.
Today.
Today. So that was a $600,000 project. I'm rounding, as you see, it's 587. So that's going to be carried over into next year's budget. Again, a third of the truck cost. We have our wastewater treatment plant biosolid storage tank. That is another evaluation that we have done. That's a $3 million project. So if you look at the sewer plan says that in 2023 that we were based on our growth in the city, we would have to have doubled our sewer capacity. So basically doubled your entire sewer plant. We did an evaluation and we figured out, and that's, you're talking $20 million. But we decided based on our sludge press that we put in, our screw press, that we put in a couple of years ago that saved us a lot of money and for our dewatering. And then this biosolid storage tank is going to buy us at least 5 to 10 years of having to redo the whole plant. So that's the least expensive route to go by putting in an additional storage tank at the sewer plant. And it actually is in our sewer plan. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when Pete and I go to the IACC meeting this next week, kind of some projects that we're presenting to them. Lift station number 1 and lift station number 2 pump replacement is yet to be done this year. We are carrying that over into next year. Lift station number 1 lid repair will be carried over into next year. And then, so out of the $4.1 million requested, I'm asking for $395 at this point, which is 9.5% of the sewer budget. Our stormwater fund is a brand new fund. You will have just seen that on your bill. You will see there is about a $4 and about a $460 charge every month. On this last bill, it was 7 something because it was for 45 days. So what we're doing is instead of taking money out of the road fund, we have our own stormwater fund, which will go into stormwater drainage. We put the money here that we have. If we get the money for the Safe Routes to School bike and pedestrian, we'll be putting that money towards that grant as our match. Otherwise, which deals with the water runoff on State Route 503 to account for the sidewalks that are going in. Otherwise, we'll be putting that into our storm catch basin repairs instead of this grant dollar match. Okay, so then we're going to look at some 2022-2023 grants. So like I mentioned before, for Westcott Avenue, we have a $1.2 million project and a $1.13 million project. Of that, we have $125,000 local matching. Anyway, I couldn't think of the word. And then our Safe Routes to School, we have $65,000 match, and that project cost is a $4.2 million project. And so $235,000 in addition to the 65 that we would put in would go towards that match, which gave us extra points. And then the Exit 21, it's not a study, that's a typo, I apologize for that. Exit 21, it should be, say, engineering, and I'll change that before it gets posted. We have an $81,000 match for a $600,000 grant that we received from the CWCOG. That is not going to pay for the engineering for Exit 21, but it's a good start. We also received a $2 million grant from a little over $2 million from the county to work towards our engineering, so it's shovel ready to be able to score higher, to be able to obtain funding, which will be about $20 million to redo Exit 21 intersection. And then we have the bike and pedestrian program phase 2 that is a $2.4 million. That's phase 2, which I talked to you about, which is from the roundabout on State Route 503 to Gun Club. That's $2.4 million project. Our match is $30,000. And so of that, you can see that we requested $7.8 million in project costs. Of that, we need to have a 5% match. So I've asked for all of it, but the Safe Routes to School, because we didn't get awarded that one yet. So here's some of the unidentified funding priorities that I see in 2023 that are not in a balanced budget. The 1.5 million gallon reservoir, and again, this will all be available online for you guys, and the link for when you go online, you'll be able to pull this up. And then the biosolid storage tank and the automated meter reading. Those I have not budgeted for because they won't create a balanced budget. I apologize for my slurring of my words. But now I'll talk to you a little bit about these 3 projects. So I have applied for grant funding for these projects, not the automated meter reading at this time, but for the water treatment plant and the wastewater treatment plant. What happens is I've applied for USDA for Lakeshore. We did not get that because it was such a quick turnaround time to be able to get that pipe in the ground. But what they said is, we want to work with you on your 1.5 million gallon reservoir. We want to work with you on your biosolid storage tank, and we want to work with you on your asbestos water line on Lakeshore. So if USDA gives us funding, and I'm meeting with her tomorrow actually, if we can work out a plan where we can get some funding from them, they said the maximum they do is 30%. We can take the money that we were spending from ARPA dollars that we received from the state, and we can transfer it to use on the 1.5 million gallon storage tank. So if we get 30%, we can take that money and transfer it to this. But you know, you think of 30% of $5 million, that's $1.5 million that we might be eligible to get from USDA for our water tank. We might be able to get that for our storage tank, 30% of 3, so basically almost $1 million. And then I'll talk to them about the automated meter reading. I don't know if they do funding on that, but we're going to talk to them about that. And then we also have, we've applied for the Department of Ecology. I just completed a grant application for them for that biosolid storage tank. You can only apply if it's in your sewer plan. This is in our sewer plan. We were able to point that out to them, so they're going to talk to us about funding when I go to the IACC conference in the next 2 days. We also are in the midst of filling out an application for the Department of Health. Now, the Department of Ecology and the Department of Health, these are loan grant programs. So what they do is they say, we'll give you a loan at a really low interest rate, like sometimes lower than bonding. And if you can show us, you as a city can show us that you would have to raise your rates to pay us back, or that you're not in a good financial situation, you don't have a lot of money in reserve, or you're barely making ends meet, then they will sometimes write off part of that loan for you, but not until you show them that. So Pete and I have our work cut out for us to show them where we're sitting financially, to determine whether or not they're going to make us pay it back. If they do make us pay it back, what's the rate going to be? Is it better for us to bond? Or are they going to waive some of the loan amount for us as a city? So that's our job to go out and try to sell that. But I will tell you right now, we're on the Department of Health violation. So we have to move forward with either fixing your reservoir number 2 or putting in a new reservoir number 4, because the reservoir number 2 is the concrete tank I told you that's $500,000. Reservoir number 4 is $1.5 million, which replaces the $500,000 one that's failed. And it replaces and it adds the $1 million that you're required to by your water system plan in the Department of Health. So that's what's going on right now. So other than that, I think that's all I have that I wanted to present. But Pete, do you want to talk a little bit about the funding, maybe something that I've left out, if anything at all? If I haven't explained anything very well.
I just think that on some of these larger projects like the water reservoir and the biosolid storage tank, we're definitely going to have to bond or take on some debt to get those done. So as we understand what other funds are available to reduce the amount we have to go out for debt, we will be coming to City Council talking about bonding for those projects, especially the water reservoir, because it has to be done. And I think you did mention that the $500,000 gallon reservoir that's failing, it has a leak basically.
And it's 50 years old.
It's 50 years old.
I need to double check the age. Just by my site observation, it's a very old tank, and somebody in here might know the answer to how old it is. I don't know. Mary might know. She was around for a long time in the city prior to myself or Gina, but it is an older tank. It is not structurally sound. It needs to be earthquake proof. That means you have to dig under the entire tank because the leak is underneath the bottom of the tank. We've already repaired it once, and it was before I came on board 5 years ago. So, Mary, do you know how old that tank is by any chance?
So I think it's identified as the water system plan.
It is in the water system plan, Mary. It is.
Right.
The
So,
age of all the tanks.
so we will be coming back to council with some requests, but we need to solidify how much money we think we need to do these projects, look at what the debt service on that is, and then we'll be able to speak to council with some hard numbers.
So since we have a captive audience, could Ms. Coleman speak on what her budget looked like when she got here 5 years ago? And explain maybe what grants are, because not everybody knows when you're saying I got a grant for something.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Peace out.
That's irrelevant. 5 years.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
So just because of the simple fact that all of these projects would not need to be done had they been maintained before you got here. That would be my point, because I've sat in enough of your meetings.
I will just say this, that I'm sorry that they left, because it really is relevant, because the whole goal of going out for grant dollars is to reduce the amount of money that you guys have to put out of pocket. It's very relevant. So if you look at our grant sheet, which is the funds, I mean, $7.8 million of grant funds, and the city's putting out $429,000. So it's very relevant, because if I can go and obtain a grant, 30% of $5 million, that means you guys don't have to have it out of your utility rate. And anything we could do to keep that lower, because you have to do your tank. You don't have a choice. Department of Health, it's right here. This is online. You have to do it. There's no choice. The city doesn't have a choice. You can't say, oh, we're not gonna do it. We're not gonna fix it. It doesn't work that way. You can repair your 500,000 gallon tank. You can, and say, I'm gonna get myself by for another 3 to 5 years until they make you put in the other 1 million gallons. You can do that. That's your choice. But what's that tank, that 1 million gallon tank gonna cost you 2, 3, 4 years down the road? It's a steel tank, glass line. So what's that gonna cost you 2 or 3 years? So now, are you gonna be paying $5 million, a 1 million gallon tank versus $5 million for $1.5 million? I'm just throwing stuff out. That's why I'm glad you guys are here, because I talk about this every year in my budget. I give presentations. When we do the utility rate studies, we talked about all of this in our utility rate studies, which went on council meeting after council meeting. It's all available online. And I know that nobody has, I don't like to come to these council meetings. I hate to say that. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude, but I really don't. Nobody wants to take their Monday nights and come here, especially every Monday night when you're doing budget. And it's a lot of information, and if you don't have the knowledge base in that, we try to make it as simple as possible, easy reading, so you can see what's required. So, and you can always say, hey, Tracy, show me the capital project for water and sewer. I can point it out to you right in that chapter. And it's outlined, this is what we have to do. In the utility rate study, that's pretty cut and dry, it outlines the capital projects that we budgeted for based on the utility rates and what the utility rates were set for at that 15.5% for the next 2 years. So I'm not saying I agree with the rates, that I don't want the rates raised, but I also know your infrastructure, and that's my job, is to point out what's failing in the infrastructure and what we have to maintain per the Department of Health and Department of Ecology. And what have we done already? And to point that out to you, what's been spent, so you guys know what money we spent. I think you asked for a clarifying question.
Yeah, can we, sorry.
She had a
Well, that's what I want to ask. Do you have time to have a few questions?
I actually, yeah, we're right here till 10.
Okay.
So yeah.
You can say your name and then ask your question.
I'm Clarissa Reinhardt.
Okay.
So on the one on the slide that had the sidewalk stuff, so that's a big concern of mine, and so I wanted to clarify, because it looked like the first phase was from.
Oh, safe routes to school. So
yeah.
That would be on the street.
So it said from basically like town to Gun Club would be the first phase.
So it doesn't matter whether you call it phase 1 or phase 2.
Okay.
I split it up in 2 phases to go. So there's 2 different grants that I can apply for. I've been applying for these grants for 4 years, and I continue to apply. I'm just, one day they're going to get sick of me and they're going to give it to me, because that's what they do. So I split it up in 2 phases, because you can't ask for $5 million. You're not going to get it. But if you ask for a little bit of money, then maybe they give it to you, right? So I called phase 1 from the intermediate school to Gun Club, and it's all on.
So I think when you said it the other way, because I was like, there's less sidewalk on the side that's more money. I was like, how is that possible?
Yeah.
So I guess the clarification, that was one of them. And then the other part of it that I'm concerned about is if we don't get that grant money. So I'm a teacher.
Yep.
I bike and walk to school all the time.
Yep.
I'm willing to take on that risk as an adult. But there is not, as you know, sidewalks that go from my side of town to where I work. Every single day that I'm biking, I'm passing kids, and not just my middle school kids, elementary school kids.
Right.
So I want to make sure that as a city, we are planning that if that doesn't happen soon, it gets taken care of.
So one thing that I want to share with you when I go for these grants. So I received another grant that isn't even up here, and that was for our Gun Club Road, and that's for sidewalks, to finish the sidewalks on Gun Club Road, and for bike lane on Gun Club Road, because the state, because it's State Route 503, did not want a bike lane on State Route 503 for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
The truck, even though the speed limit is what, 25?
30.
30.
The scariest part is by the flashing light. Like that's the one, literally, like there's kids, if they needed to, could go through, whether like they could do that. The scariest part by far is from the corner store to the pot shop. Basically, like that is the one area that I see kids every single day, and it terrifies me.
And we've actually walked it with WashDOT to show them the area, because we actually were on last year, I think we were on the list of possible getting the grant, and then they took all the funding away. But they actually came out and walked the project with us, and they said, well, you might want to modify your project to include 10-foot here for bike and pedestrian on the backside, to go on the backside of school, which we did. And so when we submitted this year, we made sure it included that. So I'm hopeful that we'll get it, and I'll just keep applying because that's the only thing you can do. But, you know, we as a city, if you look at our funding, we had 200, this goes to your question, what did we start with? We had, I think when I first came here, $250,000 in our street fund. Now that street fund goes for sidewalks, stormwater repair, grant match dollars, anything that has to do with the streets, street lights, that's your whole street fund, 250,000, whatever it was. And so a previous director before me used the entire budget to do Old Pacific Highway. So if you go from the police station all the way down to exit 20 to exit 22, the whole street budget was spent on that stretch. So my job is, when I came in, I'm like, well, wait a minute, how can we stretch 250,000 to 2.5 million, right? You do match grant dollars. So we just started applying for grants, and we've been receiving them, and some we don't get. So we do. Most of our sidewalks have been grants, and so we'll just keep applying. But that you got to stretch your dollars as much as you can. We don't have a lot of dollars, so that's what I try to do with our public works budget. It takes a long time, and sometimes you're like, well, why are you doing that? Oh, and I will tell you, when you get funds, you can only spend it on certain things. So you can't spend the grant dollars from here on something else. You can't spend water funds on sidewalks. You can't spend sewer funds on sidewalks. Water has to go for water, sewer has to go for sewer, roads have to go for roads. You can't mix your money. So sometimes you can get a grant for something, and you're like, well, why are you doing all these sidewalks? You're not doing the water. Well, you try to apply, but there's not a lot of water grants, but there's a lot of sidewalk grant money, maybe, possibly that year.
I guess my only thing I'm thinking is seeing what I see and seeing the risk. Don't get me wrong, I want sidewalks to be made. I would rather put in new sidewalks where it's the most dangerous for kids and let other sidewalks take a year or two.
Yeah, and we put in all new sidewalks with grants, and some of the grants are categorically for low income. So if you don't have low income on that side of town, they're not going to give you a grant. So some of the sidewalks we put in are in a lower income area. So there's all these little caveats that you have to match. And I know it's frustrating, but that's what we try to do.
Can you pull it from the reserve fund?
So we can talk about the reserve fund with streets, water, and sewer, and people talk a little bit about that because the reserve fund has to do with when you go out, if you need to bond for, let's say, a street project, if you need to bond for a water or sewer project, you have to have so much in reserves. But you do want to pull out of your reserve fund, but you also want to build it up to a certain level so you get a better borrowing power for a lower interest rate. But I'll let Pete talk a little bit about that because you know more about that than I do.
Well, and really a budget's all about priorities. You know, it's hard to say you don't have money for one thing. It's all the competing projects too. So, yeah, you can dip into reserves to help fund some projects, and that's up to city council to determine those priorities. We give them our version of the budget, and they're able to make changes. So, so yeah, I can't say, you know, no, we definitely can't dip into reserves. That's a possibility. It just depends on the priorities that are established.
Right, I was just thinking gun club sidewalks. I'm on Spruce. I don't give a crap if I have a sidewalk. We don't have sidewalks. I could care less. I'd rather, if we had the offer for town sidewalks, that forfeit that. No, those kids need to be safe.
Right.
That is.
But we do want to maintain, you know, enough reserves to take care of emergency situations when they happen. You know, heard about some of the water.
I get that too. I'm just thinking it's such a small stretch.
Yeah.
You know, hundreds, few thousand.
So the project to do the sidewalks is $2.5 million.
Just for that little area?
No, not for that little area, but I'm just saying, but I'm just saying, you know, when you go through that, so you can say, I'm gonna pick that little area, which I've seen, I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but we put delineated markers on the road and we stopped the turns, and we also put in a strip of asphalt to be able to keep people from driving over in that little asphalt path. Now that's WashDOT's property. That's WashDOT's right away. So we have to get all approval from WashDOT in order to put the sidewalk in there, but they did do that bump for me on that, and they did do some striping for me to try to keep traffic slowed down and the turning radius. So we did get that done, I think it was last year or year before.
The two areas that are the most dangerous are right past Rooster Brew, like on the corner, because you can't be on the one side, you have to be on the Blackberry Bush side. And right on that corner, it's very narrow and the Blackberries are in the street, so like they have to
We
kind
just
of.
cut them back, but you're right, they were all the way on the
Yeah,
street.
so that corner is super dangerous, and then as you are, like, once you've gone around the flashing sign towards the corner store, that.
Well, the roundabout crossing is dangerous. Just
It
crossing
is,
the
but
roundabout,
at
I mean,
least there's like a spot that's designated.
yeah.
It's the fact that there's no, so like, when you go by Rooster Brew and then you make the corner and you go down the little hill, like little tiny hill there, it is really narrow right there. As soon as you get a little bit further towards, I think there's like that big, I don't know if it's like an older folks home.
Sherman's house.
Sherman's house.
For the
So
old-timers.
when you get towards the driveway, there's plenty of space there. But it's you're getting closer to that corner, there's just not the shoulder there to be safe.
Yeah.
But the gentleman that lives there now says when people come out of the roundabout, it's NASCAR time.
Yeah,
It can be.
yeah, whole state route 503 is NASCAR. I mean, I've driven in there and I get honked and people are on my rear.
Here's the
I'm
thing
going
though,
2 miles.
there's still an easy solution. If you don't want people to go that way, or if like, I mean, let's put it this way. If people knew that there were sidewalks, like I talked to a parent today that was terrified that their kid was gonna walk home because they live on this side of town.
Yeah.
So the sidewalks don't have to be right there. It would be slightly further, but we could easily do sidewalks down, is it Pacific? By Sagawas, because it's about the same amount of Atlantic. It's
Yeah.
about the same amount of sidewalk there,
And that's,
really.
we did sidewalks on Atlantic. The only stretch that we couldn't do sidewalks on.
Darby.
And do you know why? Because WashDOT wanted how much was the study? $500,000 to study because there's Interstate 5 water runoff that goes onto, and Atlantic is their road, onto Atlantic, and they said that they didn't believe they had to do a study, the RV place had to do a study to show that the water would be able to drain in that small ditch swale, and they didn't want to pay, the RV didn't want to come into town if they had to pay $500,000 to do a study for WashDOT. So that's why there's no sidewalk there.
Mr. Geithner? I'm assuming, I mean, real quickly to finish it, we have the right of way already in the easements all the way out to the intermediate or what, it's not the intermediate.
We need one right of way that we're working on right now.
Because on the opposite side of the road, I know that we don't own all of those.
That's correct.
So I just wanted to,
And I won't even say it because then you'll know what.
I know exactly where it at
Yep.
every time, right there.
Yep.
So, okay,
Yep.
just want to make sure because
That's the only one that we don't have,
Yep.
and he's waiting for me to get back to him with a legal write-up of the property description. I've already negotiated with him as far as the driveway access, but just I need to get the legal write-up for the property description, and he said he would sign it via email.
Exactly. So that's a question. Okay, can we go back? You said exit 21 really quickly. You said you thought it was 2.1, but if I look at the budget, I think it's 2.6. Is that
Yeah, I think you're right, and I know it was more, so it was over it was over $2 million from the county received, and I think it was 2.
so it shows here as there's a county of 2.6 million.
Okay, there would be 2.6 and then another 600,000 for CW cog with our match.
Exactly.
87,000, but that isn't all for engineering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree. I just want to make sure that
I'm just
I
making
was
sure I
seeing the
explain to everybody else.
Yep, want to see that. Okay, and then let's go back to the unidentified projects here. So the unidentified projects, there are 493,015, so it comes to roughly 9.4 million if I look at that slide back there.
Yeah, the last
Okay.
slide.
And
Yeah.
you said there was, some ARP money. So if I look at the budget.
There is no AARP money remaining because the ARPA money has been spent on projects that are in process.
Oh, I thought you were going to transfer some of those dollars to
I was
offset.
saying if we did receive funding for the asbestos water line replacement that I'm going to talk with them about this week, if they decide to give us funding for that, if USDA decides to give us 30%, I could take the money that we're spending from ARPA from there and transfer it to another project.
Okay.
Yes.
So bonds then, grants. So if we have 9.4 million, I'm not going to worry about any transfers yet. So 9.4 million, if we can get 30% grants, best case scenario is what I'm hearing, right? Roughly 30%.
So I would say it's 8 million because I don't even know if the automated meters, AMRs, will qualify for a grant.
Well, I was going to talk about AMR. I mean, I'm very familiar with utility with AMR.
That me
versus
too, I worked
AMR.
with Pacific for 8
Yeah.
years.
Exactly. So
We're on it. I'm on it.
okay. So you're on the same page. So we go back to the 8 million, 30% then roughly there.
2.4.
Right, 2.4, that leaves us with, call it north of 5 million. So these are my questions when it gets back to the city sewer rates and things, and I know you don't have the answers, but just things to think about, okay? Those projects, is that a 5-year bond that we're able to get on it? Is it a 10-year bond? What is the impact to rates? Okay, and it's a $1.5 million, holding tank from a 1 million. We see the growth. I've been here 27 years, my wife 52 years, born and raised. This gentleman here, our families, we know growth is coming. I don't think I can deny that here.
I think I can answer that question.
But if you build a 2 million gallon tank, instead of getting a 10-year bond, does that extend it so we get a 20-year bond or something? Your rates are lower. It gives you long-term impact. As a city, are we thinking big picture like that?
Yep.
And so,
can I answer your question?
Yeah.
Because you brought it up and I want people to know, because Pete and I have been discussing this, and Pete, you can go into that. So when you're talking about rates, one of the things when you go in and you apply for these, they don't let the rates go up. They said, is this going to cause you
exactly.
And so you're saying now you have 5 million that you're looking at. If you can get the USDA funding, right?
Exactly.
If you can, so let's say you have 5 million. So when Pete goes to talk to the bonding companies, he says, okay, I have 5 million. How much revenue do we have coming in? And how much can we afford to pay? And then based on what you can afford to pay, that's the bond that you go and get. So I'll let you kind of go, and because you've been working with the bonding companies.
Well, and again, we have to figure out, the exact amount we need to go for.
Exactly.
But we are looking at different terms. Depending on the length of the term, you get different rates. We're looking at how much, the current rate structure can support over that period of time.
Without increasing.
So, all of this is fluid right now, but we really need to get down to, okay, what grants are realistic? What can we bring in to offset the expense? And what are we looking for? That, then we can put the calculator to it and see, okay, what term makes sense? We'll talk to city council about priorities.
I guess with it by further along here though, Pete, is, and I've made this with you, I kind of made it earlier here. I don't expect you all to be the experts. I know what my council is capable of already. A workshop or something, bring in, there are smart people in our community who can come and be creative. Some of us do this for a living, and let's partner. And so that's why I'm saying, hey, this workshop here, you know what I'm saying, Pete?
Right,
You know what I'm
and we
saying,
do bring in financial advisors for this. The last bond we worked with D.A. Davidson, we do hire a bond counsel that specializes in bonds. And we do let them speak to city council and, try to educate the council and the public as to what it means to take out a 20-year bond at this rate. What is the cost?
Yeah, and you're going to do estimations on everything, and I totally get that. I see slide here after slide, 1.5. I'm just like, okay, 50% increase on a holding tank when our community here has grown more than 50% in the last 10 years.
So the other aspect I want to add to this, and that is we are aware of the growth, and the question we quite often get, and that is, are the existing taxpayers subsidizing new growth? And the answer to that is no. Because, for example, 500,000 gallon tank is what we have now. We could replace that, or we could build a 1.5, which means there's additional capacity. We could have an empty tank with nobody using it, or we could have a full tank with nobody using it. But you have, like, the subdivision up there behind the intermediate school, they're adding about 190 houses up there, which means that's 10% more ratepayers, which means when this new reservoir gets online, there's going to be an extra 10% of the community paying those bills, which means in the future, you shouldn't theoretically be facing as many increases, which is why it's painful up front, but in the long run, there'll be more people helping to pay those bills.
Right, and I want you to be clear there, is it's not going to be a rate decrease here because, again, we've got this $9 million of capital expenditure. An extra 190 houses doesn't all of a sudden alleviate and pay for that. I'm totally on board.
But the maintenance and the guys out there fixing the leaks, there are extra people helping. And when a new subdivision comes online, they build water main. And and then we charge them $5,000 or $6,000 to hook up every house to that. So you have 190 houses paying $5,000 to hook up to a water main that they built. Tracy now has additional funds, a pot of money that she can go out and get a grant, and that 30%, instead of $100,000, it's $1.2 million to get you something else, maybe somewhere else in the budget. So that's part of the reason why she has to structure these things well. We've reallocated here, but if that frees up, she'll use it somewhere else more effectively. That's because new development helps free up funds, and they'll help you pay your bills and prevent future increases or minimize the impacts to your existing bills.
But I want to say something that I want everybody to be aware of. So I started 5 years ago, and when I started, I looked at the water system plan, I looked at the sewer plan. I really did an in-depth look at it, said, because when I was told that we were reactive versus proactive, I'm like, okay, well, what am I working with here? So when I looked at the water system plan, I looked at sewer plan, I'm like, okay, I looked at the projects that had been completed, and there weren't a lot of projects that were completed, if any at all, in some of them. And so the last few years, we've been completing these projects, which is great. But I will also say that I believe, and Mary, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because you'll remember this. I believe it was 2012 that they said that they were just going to do flat 7% increases. Is that about right? Is that about right?
2011.
2011. Okay, so in 2011, the council came and said, hey, we're borderline going bankrupt on our utilities, so we are going to do a mandatory across the board 2011 7% increase in water and sewer. Didn't do a rate study, didn't do anything. They just said we're going to do 7% a year. So everybody got a rate increase, 7% per year. So then you look at what's that 7% give you? Nobody looked at the capital infrastructure to say, do we need to do 7%? Can we do 2%? Can we do 5%? Do we need 12%? Nobody looked at it. They just said, we're going to do 7%. And I'm not blaming this on anybody. I'm just saying that it wasn't done the right way. So then when we came on board, Pete, myself, and Mary, I think, was working on the utility rate study. We said, we really need to do a utility rate study. We need to see what does the city's capital infrastructure look like, and what do our rates need to be able to maintain and do what our capital plans say that we have to do for the Department of Health and for the Department of Ecology. So that's what we did. And then when they came back and said, yeah, your sewer plan looks great, you can actually lower your sewer rates, but your water plan is out of control. You're out of control financially. Meaning
Lower
that,
sewer rates.
yeah, lower.
Just-
I said lower. Thank
They
you.
just did not increase.
Yeah, we didn't
those.
increase them, right? So they're saying you don't have to do this, but you need more money in your water. So what we did is we said, well, we tried to lower the sewer a little bit to offset the increase in the water rate, to be able to do that. And you can see from what I showed you, if you look at the water funds, what really we need to do and what should have been done a long time ago. Because it's always been in the water plan that and the year 2023 and your sewer plan that you might have to double your sewer plan.
Right.
And that's 20 million, but nobody did anything about it. So somebody finally is looking at that, and it's unfortunate that it happened recently.
So I have two last questions. One is, I see the budget numbers here that you threw in there. They're scattered throughout the general fund, so I would not be able to tie those back to what you have here, because what you posted online is a full budget, so I have no idea what else is made up. So you might say 45,000, or you said a truck for 45,000, right?
Yeah,
15,000, right? 45 total. But that line item for the total, but council is, or the city is 60,000. So I don't know what the other 15,000, for example, is. So is there any way to get those broken out by department, Pete, or is that?
Yeah, we can, I'll work with Tracy on that.
Okay. And if I need to send an email, that's helpful. I mean, and then my last question is, so back on the 18%, 15%, whatever our rate increase is coming in November. Has anyone done a study? So if I look, again, I could be wrong here, back to the envelope, I see that the sewer revenues from ratepayers, I think it's somewhere around 3 million, I think is the number I'm in here. I could have the wrong line item, it could be more. So 18% is roughly, back of the envelope, I'm talking 400,000 bucks.
I don't know where the 18% is coming from because we've only in our rate study approved 15.5.
Okay, 15 still on
Yeah,
north
so-
of,
That's on average.
That's
on average.
Yeah.
so I'm still north of $400,000 here. What would your budget look like if you said, we're not going to increase the 15% and we had to take a $400,000 budget? Is there a way you would be able to tell the residents and say, you know what, this is what that $400,000 would do to our water? I mean, is there a way to explain to us what that $400,000
So are
would
you
do
talking
to?
about, okay, if we did not do the rate increase, what impact would it have on capital projects?
Yeah,
Operations?
yeah, exactly, because I mean, if you hear this residents, you hear the city.
I have the same question, and before the meeting and tonight, I was gonna ask that same thing, to put a workshop together to see the impact of delaying this next increase versus applying it in November. And then the other thing with the low income housing, I would like to tie that together. So how do we go about doing another workshop for that?
We can do that, you know, it can be part of our budget, excuse me, smoke. Be part of our budget workshops. We might need a little lead time to prepare for that, so I don't know if we'll have it done Monday because Tracy and I are out the next couple of days trying to get dollars for these projects.
And when does the next increase supposed to take effect?
It's supposed to take effect November and be billed in December.
Is there a way we can delay that till after budget season to go through this budget season to see if there's a possibility of delaying that?
It's a city council action. If city council deems that that's appropriate, I think we want to do it in enough time to coordinate with Minot. That would be the only caveat.
I mean, Peter, I think if you back of the envelope, for every month you delay, it's roughly $30,000 to the city budget. So it would be one of those things.
Right. Yeah, it's just.
We've already delayed it nearly 2 years.
Well, we delayed the first one, and that's I think that's the big concern
Nearly
is
2 years, yeah.
it's delayed. The first one's been delayed, and now it got implemented, and then the next one is 3 months right after it. I think that's the biggest hammer down, and so we delayed the first one by 2 years. Why we can't delay the next one by?
City council has the ability to do that.
I think that's the biggest issue that I've heard today is that it's back to back, and people can't plan for that, and so I think that's what people are going for. So that's what I would like to have that discussion and see what we can come up with. So, does council have anything further?
How much longer? Because we can only go till 10.
Yeah, I was gonna wrap it up, so that way, if there's questions for council members afterwards, so we're not here till 11 o'clock at night. So, do we have to end the workshop at this point?
Do you have more that you were going to?
No, tonight's presentation was Public Works because it's so good.
So girthy.
Yeah, she gets a whole workshop.
So at this point, we will,
Hey,
end
Mont,
yes.
hey, so can I just clarify what you just asked? In order to delay the November, they say they need enough lead time. If we wait till the November 7th, that doesn't leave enough lead time, and that's our next actual meeting. So
Our next, is it? next
November
week, Monday?
7th is our next meeting. So that would not be enough lead time. Is it something that we'd have to take action on tonight in order to even do anything about it?
Yes, we can advertise a special meeting and city council could take action. So it would be a special meeting / budget workshop.
And I think it would be good if we had, at this point, we've got 4 people here. I think there are 5 people online. I think it would be good to have people here to discuss
So
it.
is that the consensus of city council? I don't need a vote, but just.
So we're gonna, just so I'm understanding, so we're gonna give up part of our budget workshop for a workshop on this or on?
Well, I think he has to take action. Is that right?
I think we're talking about taking action to delay the second increase.
Yes.
Next number of months.
And what is that X? I guess in order.
Can
to
we say January?
January 1, delay the next increase of January 1.
So at least we get all the winter bills starting to come in when the decrease. I mean, people feel less in the winter months anyways, that it won't hit them as hard as when we've had no rain and people are still watering.
I would say if we could do a motion to delay it to January, and that would give us more time to talk about it and have a workshop.
Okay, so I will drop a resolution to delay that increase. Maybe it might be a council order like we did before. I'll speak with Mr. Randolph.
Okay.
And we'll have it on the meeting for this Monday.
But is this still, so correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been a couple of years since we had the conversation with the FCS group. Are they still doing averaging? Because isn't that the thing, is in the winter months, your bill goes up because you average.
I believe there still is winter averaging.
And so that's probably what the current escalated bills are. Would that be correct?
That's a portion of it, yeah.
The thing I kept asking, why do we average? And apparently it's a thing, but how do we get rid of it? Because I understand they had a great presentation about all of it, but my dead yard in the summer, I'm paying higher rates in the winter because averaging was always the explanation given to me.
So our executive team was talking today about some of the changes that have been happening, things we couldn't contemplate when we adopted these rates, such as COVID, inflation, the way it's looking. It might be worth talking with FCS about maybe doing a tune-up of the rate study and not a full-blown rate study. But city council can determine how we bill, is the short answer. So if city council doesn't like winter averaging, we can do away with it. We need to look at what the effect of doing away with it would be.
Right, a comprehensive view, make sure you're not creating a new problem.
And that's why I'm talking to FCS about maybe a tune-up. If city council wants to take a different direction with that, they could come in, do the analysis, and tell us what that would mean as far as revenue coming in and what that would mean as far as what we can do in capital projects.
Okay.
So the short answer is yes, city council can do whatever it chooses. But we want to make sure when city council is making those decisions, you understand what the impact of those decisions are.
But we would have time to put it on the agenda for Monday and be able to get the notices out.
I can get the ordinance together, or the council order or resolution together for the delay with the increase by Monday.
Okay.
If you want that analysis on winter averaging, that's not going to happen.
No. Okay. Anything further?
No, I think the resolution will be a great start.
Okay. Chair will accept a motion to end the meeting. Move to end the meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
So,
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Sure.
I don't know about all these.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
Every other.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for being here.
And yet it's still there. And then I find a little thing down here that says return to live. I wrote more notes.